Clean this up, Maya, and come with me right now. Dr. Richard Collins snapped the order from the doorway of room 7, before Maya William could finish checking Samuel Harris's pulse. "Doctor, his pressure is dropping," she said. "He needs close monitoring." Collins stepped into the room, his white coat swinging open as if the entire department were expected to make space for him. "I didn't ask for a lecture," I said. "Get up." Samuel turned his head toward Maya. "Don't leave." Maya placed 2 fingers lightly against his wrist. "I'm right here, Mr. Harris. Just breathe with me." "No," Collins said sharply. "You are not right here. You are coming with me." A few people gathered near the hallway. No one entered. That was how it often happened in hospitals like Street Catherine Medical Center. People heard cruelty, recognized it, disliked it, and still found a reason to keep their hands busy. Maya looked up. "Where am I being sent?" "The isolation suite," Collins said. "Mr. Martin Whitmore is upstairs." Martin Whitmore was the hospital's most important investor. His name was on the donor wall in the lobby in gold letters, large enough to make sick people feel small. That morning, word had spread that he had arrived with a high fever, respiratory symptoms, and a possible infectious exposure from a private business retreat overseas. He needed one-on-one care in the VIP isolation suite until the infectious disease specialist arrived, and nobody wanted the assignment. One nurse said she had a baby at home. Another said her husband's immune system was weak. A third claimed she had not completed the latest isolation refresher. The duty had been passed around quietly, politely, fearfully, until it landed exactly where difficult work always seemed to land. On the newest nurse. On the quiet black nurse. On Maya. "If he's a possible infectious case," Maya said, "he needs a prepared isolation team, proper PPE, and a nurse who is not already with an unstable cardiac patient." Collins gave a humorless laugh. "You don't get to rewrite assignments." "I'm not rewriting anything. I'm telling you Mr. Harris isn't safe." Collins pointed toward the small tray beside the bed. "Clean this up. Hand him off. Move." Samuel's monitor beeped again, uneven and thin. Maya shook her head once. "No, sir. Not until he's stable." Collins's face hardened. "Excuse me? My patient needs me." "Your patient?" Collins repeated, his voice rising. "You've been here 6 weeks, Maya. 6. Don't walk into my ER and start acting like you own the place." "I don't own anything here." "Good. Then follow orders." Grace took 1 step forward. "Dr. Collins, maybe I can call charge and see if someone from upstairs." "Grace, stay out of it." Grace stopped, but her eyes stayed on Maya. Collins turned back, angrier now because the hallway was watching. This is what happens when people forget how a chain of command works. You are not special. You are not irreplaceable. You are not here to make speeches about compassion. You are here to do the job you're given. Maya kept her hand on Samuel's wrist. His pulse was fast and thready. "With respect," she said, "I am doing my job." "No," Collins snapped. "You're making trouble." Samuel tried to lift his head. "Doctor, she's helping me." Collins barely looked at him. "Mr. Harris, lie back." "He's scared," Maya said. "He's being treated. He's being dismissed." That sentence struck harder than she intended, or maybe exactly as hard as truth always does when it reaches the right nerve. Collins moved around the bed, suddenly, and grabbed Maya by the upper arm. Not lightly, his fingers clamped through her scrub sleeve, and he yanked her away from Samuel's bedside with enough force that her hip hit the rolling stool behind her. Samuel gasped. "Hey, don't touch her." The monitor jumped with his panic. Maya turned toward him immediately. "Mr. Harris, eyes on me. Breathe. Slow." But Collins pulled her again. "You are done arguing," he said. "You are going upstairs." Maya looked down at his hand on her arm, then back at his face. Her voice dropped, calm but firm. "Let go. Take the assignment. Let go of me. You refuse this order. You're fired. My patient is unstable. My investor is waiting." That does not make him more human than Mr. Harris. The room went silent. Collins's face flushed red. For a second, he looked less like a doctor and more like a man who had been exposed in front of people he expected to control. He leaned close. You need to remember your place." Samuel's eyes filled with tears. Grace looked down, ashamed and angry at the same time. The younger security guard who had just appeared at the doorway hesitated, uncertain whether he was walking into a medical disagreement or something uglier. Maya did not look away. "My place," she said, "is beside the patient who needs me." Collins jerked her arm again. "Wrong answer." This time Maya stumbled half a step. Samuel cried out, "Stop it! She didn't do anything." Grace moved forward. "Dr. Collins, please. His pressure is dropping. You're upsetting him," Collins shouted. "Security, escort her to the VIP isolation suite." The young guard swallowed. "Sir, she's with a patient. She's refusing a direct order," Collins barked. "Move her." Maya looked at Grace. "Page cardiology again. Tell them worsening chest pressure, low pressure, left arm heaviness, unstable rhythm. If nobody answers, call rapid response." Collins snapped. "No one calls rapid response without my approval." Maya looked at him. "Then approve it." For one long second, he said nothing. That silence told the hallway everything. Then Collins tightened his grip on her arm and dragged her toward the door. Maya did not fight him, not because she was afraid, but because Samuel's eyes were fixed on her and his heart could not afford more panic. She kept her voice steady as she was pulled away. "Mr. Harris, listen to Grace. Don't fight the fear. Breathe through it." Samuel reached toward her. "Maya, I'm close," she said. "I'm still close." Collins muttered, "Maybe now you'll learn how things work here." Maya turned her head just enough to answer. "I know how things work here. That's the problem." A few nurses looked away. Nobody laughed. Nobody spoke. The whole emergency ward seemed trapped between shame and fear. Collins dragged her into the corridor, his hand still clamped around her arm. Then the double doors at the end of the hallway burst open. A large man stepped inside. He was broad-shouldered, tall, and dressed in dark tactical clothing beneath a heavy black jacket. His presence changed the air before anyone understood why. Behind him, several uniformed officers filled the doorway, but he was the one every eye went to first. He moved like a man used to entering dangerous rooms and making them quiet. His gaze swept the hallway once, then it stopped on Collins's hand gripping Maya's arm. The man's face hardened. "Take your hand off her," he thundered. The hallway froze. Collins turned, still holding Maya. For half a second, irritation flashed across his face. Then he saw the man clearly, saw the badge clipped at his belt, saw the officers behind him, saw the kind of authority that did not need to raise its voice twice. The color drained from Collins's face. His fingers loosened. Maya felt the grip fall away from her arm, but she did not step back. She turned slightly, confused. Breath caught somewhere between anger and recognition. The man took one slow step forward. His voice was lower now, but even more dangerous. "I said, take your hand off her." The man stood at the end of the corridor like a storm that had learned discipline. Dr. Richard Collins released Maya's arm as if her skin had burned him. His fingers opened slowly, one by one, and for the first time that morning, he seemed unsure of where to put his hands. The hallway remained completely still. Nurses who had been pretending not to watch were now watching openly. A resident lowered the chart in his hand. Even the security guard stepped back half a pace. Maya rubbed her upper arm once, not dramatically, not to invite sympathy, just because it hurt. The large man saw the movement. His eyes narrowed. "I asked a simple question," he said, his voice deep and controlled. "Why was your hand on her?" Collins swallowed. "This is a hospital matter." The man took another step forward. That was not an answer. Behind him, two uniformed officers entered the corridor. One wore an Atlanta Police Department badge. The other carried himself with the stiff alertness of a man trained to notice exits, hands, and threats in the same breath. Near the double doors, more officers waited, their presence filling the hospital with a kind of authority that did not belong to administrators, board members, or wealthy donors. Maya stared at the man. Her breath caught for half a second. She knew that stance. The squared shoulders, the controlled anger, the way his eyes checked her face before checking the room. She had seen that look across dinner tables, church parking lots, school graduations, and late-night phone calls when the city had taken too much from him and still expected him to stand tall the next morning. "Dad?" she said softly. The word moved through the hallway like a match dropped into dry grass. Grace Miller's hand flew to her mouth. The young security guard blinked. A nurse at the station whispered, "Oh my God." Dr. Collins went pale. The man's face changed the moment Maya spoke. Not completely. He was still command, still steel, still the kind of man who could walk into a dangerous room and make violence reconsider itself. But beneath it, something human broke through, something frightened and tender. "Maya," he said. Commander Jonathan William, head of Atlanta's SWAT division, stepped toward his daughter. "If Maya's courage touched your heart, please give this video a like. It helps more people find stories about justice, dignity, and standing up for what is right. And before you go, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, your city, your state, or your country, because you never know. Someone near you may be watching this same story right now, feeling the same emotions with you." For years, his name had carried weight across the city. Police officers straightened when he entered a briefing room. Reporters lowered their voices when he approached a microphone after a dangerous standoff. Community pastors called him when grief needed both order and mercy. He was known for ending crises without turning them into funerals. He was known for walking into situations other men waited outside of. And now, he stood in the emergency corridor of St. Catherine Medical Center, looking at the bruise beginning to rise, where a doctor's hand had gripped his daughter's arm. His voice lowered. "Did he hurt you?" Maya glanced toward room 7. "I'm fine. Mr. Harris isn't." Jonathan followed her eyes. The anger on his face shifted into focus. That was something Maya had inherited from him, though she would never admit it. When danger was present, personal feelings waited their turn. "Who is Mr. Harris?" he asked. "My patient. Cardiac symptoms, dropping pressure, left arm heaviness, unstable rhythm. I was with him when Dr. Collins tried to force me upstairs." Jonathan looked back at Collins. "Force you?" Collins lifted both hands slightly, trying to regain the language of professionalism. "Commander, I believe there has been a misunderstanding." Jonathan's eyes did not move. There usually is when someone gets caught. A few people in the hallway shifted. No one defended Collins. Collins cleared his throat. "Mr. Whitmore, our lead investor, is in the VIP isolation suite. He may have an infectious exposure." Nurse William was assigned to provide one-on-one care, and she refused a direct order. Maya answered before her father could. "I refused to abandon an unstable patient." Collins snapped. "You refused chain of command." Jonathan turned his head just enough to silence him without raising his voice. "Doctor, if you interrupt her again, this conversation is going to become much less comfortable for you." Collins closed his mouth. Grace stepped forward then, nervous but determined. Her voice trembled at first, then steadied. "Commander, she's telling the truth." Mr. Harris was getting worse. Dr. Collins ordered her to leave him for the investor. Several nurses refused the isolation assignment before it was given to Maya. The hallway absorbed that last sentence. Jonathan looked around slowly. Several nurses refused? No one answered. That silence was answer enough. Maya shook her head slightly. "Dad, not now. Please. Mr. Harris needs help." The word "dad" hit the corridor again, harder this time. People were still trying to fit it into what they thought they had known. Maya William, the quiet new nurse who brought lunch in plastic containers and worked double shifts without complaint, was the daughter of Commander Jonathan William, not a distant relative, not a rumor. His daughter. Collins looked as if the floor beneath him had shifted. Jonathan stepped aside. "Go." Maya did not wait for permission from anyone else. She moved past Collins and back into room 7. Grace followed immediately. Samuel Harris was trying to stay calm, but his face had gone slick with sweat. His breathing came too fast, shallow and uneven. When he saw Maya, relief moved across his face so clearly it almost hurt to witness. "You came back," he whispered. Maya took his wrist again. "I told you I was close." Grace checked the blood pressure. Her eyes widened. "Maya, I see it. Maya turned toward the hallway. I need cardiology now, and I need rapid response. Collins stepped toward the room. I have not authorized. Jonathan moved in front of him, not touching him. He did not need to. Doctor, Jonathan said, you might want to stop talking. Collins stared at him. You cannot interfere with medical operations. Jonathan's gaze held steady. I'm not interfering, I'm watching. Inside the room, Maya's voice changed. It became crisp, clean, and unshakable. Mr. Harris, I need you to stay with me. Grace, oxygen up. Get a fresh set of vitals. Ask for the crash cart nearby. Not in the room yet. I don't want him more scared than he already is. Samuel tried to smile. Too late for that. Maya smiled back. Small, but real. Then we'll be scared efficiently. Grace let out a breath that was almost a laugh, and for half a second, the room became less terrifying. Jonathan watched from the doorway. He had seen his daughter in many forms over 30 years. A child with scraped knees, refusing to cry. A teenager arguing that compassion mattered more than winning. A nursing student asleep over textbooks at the kitchen table. A young woman who chose hospitals over headlines because she wanted her work to belong to patients, not to his name. Now he saw her in the place she had built for herself. Not protected by him. Not made important by him. Important because she was exactly where she should have been, doing exactly what she had been trained to do. A hospital administrator hurried down the corridor then, breathless and polished, followed by a woman in a tailored suit, who looked terrified enough to be honest. Commander William, the administrator said, forcing a smile that did not survive his own anxiety. We weren't expecting… No, Jonathan said. I can see that. The administrator glanced from Jonathan to Collins, then to Maya working over Samuel Harris. Is there a problem? Grace looked up from the blood pressure cuff. There was. Maya did not look up at all. There still is. My patient needs a doctor who is focused on him. That sentence landed with painful precision. Every eye turned to Dr. Collins. For the first time all morning, he seemed to understand that the hallway had changed sides without asking his permission. The nurses were no longer looking at Maya as the problem. The guards were no longer reaching for her. The administrator was no longer certain which powerful person mattered most. And Jonathan William had not taken his eyes off the man who had grabbed his daughter. Collins adjusted his coat. I will assess the patient. Maya's voice stayed professional. Good. Start with the monitor. A few seconds passed before Collins moved. It was a small delay, but everyone saw it. Samuel reached weakly for Maya's hand. Your father? Maya glanced down. Yes, sir. He looks like he could scare the devil out of church. Despite everything, Maya laughed softly. He has tried. Samuel closed his eyes, breathing a little easier as the room finally filled with people who were paying attention for the right reason. In the corridor, Jonathan Williams stood like a locked door between his daughter and the people who had mistaken her silence for weakness. He did not announce consequences. He did not threaten lawsuits. He did not need to. The truth had already entered the building, and it was only getting started. The truth had already entered the building, but Street Catherine Medical Center did not know what to do with it. For several minutes, the emergency ward moved in a strange kind of obedience. Not the old obedience Dr. Collins was used to, the kind built on fear and titles, but a sharper, cleaner obedience built around the patient in room 7. Grace called rapid response. A respiratory therapist arrived with a portable oxygen setup. A young resident who had been avoiding eye contact all morning stepped in with a chart and finally began reading the numbers as if they belonged to a living man instead of a file. Maya stayed at Samuel Harris's side. Mr. Harris, tell me what you feel right now, she said. Pressure. Samuel whispered. Still there. Same as before or worse? He closed his eyes. Worse. Maya looked toward the resident. Repeat EKG. Now. The resident glanced instinctively at Collins. Maya saw it. So did everyone else. Collins stood near the foot of the bed, stiff and red-faced, a man forced to share authority in a room where he had expected to own it. For one moment, pride fought with medicine behind his eyes. Then Jonathan Williams' shadow filled the doorway, and Collins gave a short nod. Do it, Collins said. The resident moved quickly. Maya did not smile. She did not celebrate the small victory. Samuel's pain was still real, and dignity could wait until breathing was easier. Grace leaned close while placing a cuff around Samuel's arm. "You're doing good, Mr. Harris." Samuel tried to laugh, but it broke into a cough. "Doesn't feel like it." "I know," Grace said. "But you've got the best nurse in the building watching you." Maya gave Grace a quick look, not embarrassed, not exactly grateful, but touched in a place she had not expected to be touched that morning. Collins heard the comment and tightened his jaw. Outside the room, the hallway had become crowded without anyone admitting it. Nurses stood with charts they were not reading. Interns lingered near computers that had gone dark. Security guards kept their hands folded in front of them, suddenly very interested in being respectful. The administrator who had hurried down from the executive floor, Paul Everett, remained near Jonathan, trying to arrange his face into concern rather than panic. "Commander," Everett said carefully, "perhaps we can step into a private office and discuss what happened here." Jonathan did not look at him. "My daughter is working." "Yes, of course. I only meant—" "I know what you meant." Everett stopped talking. Jonathan kept his eyes on Maya. He had spent most of her life trying not to cast too large a shadow over her. That had been their quiet agreement. Maya wanted to earn her place without the William name opening doors or frightening people into politeness. Jonathan had respected that, even when it hurt. He had watched her work night shifts through nursing school, watched her drive herself home half asleep in that old Toyota she refused to replace, watched her choose the hard road because easy roads borrowed too much from someone else's power. Now he wondered if respecting her independence had left her alone in rooms where she should never have been alone. Inside room 7, the EKG printed with a dry mechanical chatter. Maya took the strip before anyone handed it to Collins. She read it fast, her eyes scanning the pattern. Something in her expression changed. "Doctor," she said, holding it out. Collins took it. He looked down. His posture shifted. Grace saw that shift and went pale. "What is it?" Maya answered, because Samuel was watching their faces. "There are changes we need to treat, seriously." Samuel's voice trembled. "Am I dying?" Maya leaned close. "You are in the right room. And we caught something important. That's what matters right now." That was not a lie. It was not the whole truth either. It was the kind of truth a nurse gives a frightened patient when hope needs structure and fear needs something solid to hold. Collins cleared his throat. For the first time that morning, his voice sounded like a doctor's voice instead of a supervisor's. "Start protocol. Notify cardiology again. Prepare for possible transfer." Maya nodded once. "Already done." The words were professional. The meaning was not lost on anyone. Grace pressed her lips together to hide a reaction. The resident looked at Maya with new respect, the embarrassed kind that comes too late but still counts for something if a person lets it change them. Then a woman in a navy blazer stepped quickly into the hallway. She was in her early 40s, with a hospital badge clipped to her lapel, and fear sharpened into irritation. "Dr. Collins," she said, "Mr. Whitmore's fever is higher, and he's asking why no nurse has arrived." The old pressure returned at once. Everett looked toward the ceiling as if praying for a different morning. Collins closed his eyes briefly. The nurses exchanged looks. Nobody volunteered. Maya heard the silence and understood it. The isolation suite upstairs. The infectious risk. The investor powerful enough to make administrators forget the difference between urgent and important. The assignment nobody wanted. Now waiting again like a loaded question. Jonathan turned slowly. "Who is Mr. Whitmore?" Everett stepped forward too quickly. "A major supporter of the hospital. A very generous man. We are taking every precaution." Maya kept working, but her voice carried. "Then assign a trained isolation team." The woman in the blazer hesitated. "We're short-staffed," Grace muttered under her breath. "We're always short-staffed when it gets dangerous." Collins shot her a look. Jonathan caught it. "Don't look at her. Answer, my daughter." Everett tried to soften the room with his hands. "Commander, no one is trying to endanger anyone. Mr. Whitmore requires specialized attention, and Nurse William was selected because everyone else refused," Grace said. The words came out before she could stop them. The hallway turned toward her. Grace's face flushed, but she did not take it back. Maybe she was tired. Maybe shame had finally become heavier than fear. Maybe watching Collins grab Maya had broken something open in her that had needed breaking for a long time. Everett stared. "Excuse me?" Grace swallowed. 3 nurses said no. Maybe 4. The assignment got passed around until Dr. Collins gave it to Maya. "That is not accurate." Collins snapped. Grace looked at him. "It is." A young nurse at the station spoke softly. "It is." Then another voice, from behind the desk. I heard it too. Maya did not turn around, but she felt the hallway shifting. Not enough to repair what had happened. Not enough to erase Samuel's fear or the pain in her arm, but enough to prove that truth, once spoken by one person, sometimes gave others permission to breathe. Collins looked furious. "This is not the time for staff gossip." Jonathan's voice cut through the air. "No, it's the time for facts." The woman in the blazer lowered her voice. "Mr. Whitmore still needs care." Maya adjusted Samuel's blanket, then looked toward Grace. "Can you stay with him until cardiology arrives?" Grace nodded. "Yes." Samuel grabbed Maya's hand. "You're leaving?" Maya hesitated. Everything in her wanted to stay. Everything in her training told her Samuel still mattered most. But the room had changed. Grace was in place. The protocol had started. Cardiology was finally coming. And upstairs, another patient, rich or not, frightened or not, infected or not, was still a patient. That was the cruelest part of what Collins had done. He had made a patient into a symbol of power. When Maya knew better than anyone that sickness stripped everybody down to the same fragile truth, she squeezed Samuel's hand. "Only because Nurse Grace has you now, and because if Mr. Whitmore is sick, he deserves proper care too." Samuel studied her face. "Even after all this?" "Especially after all this," Maya said. "I don't punish patients for what powerful people do around them." Jonathan's expression softened for a moment, pride and worry crossing through it together. Collins tried to step back into control. "Fine. Then, she'll go upstairs." Maya looked at him. "Not like that." "Excuse me? I need proper PPE. I need exposure details. I need a second staff member outside the suite. I need infectious disease notified and documented. And I need confirmation that Mr. Harris remains under active care." Collins opened his mouth. Jonathan spoke before he could. "That sounded reasonable to me." Everett quickly nodded. "Yes, absolutely. We'll make sure all precautions are followed." Maya looked at Everett, then Collins. "And nobody touches me again." The hallway went utterly quiet. Collins's face tightened, but he said nothing. Jonathan stepped closer to him. "Say yes." Collins looked as though the word tasted bitter. "Yes." Maya turned back to Samuel. She smoothed the blanket near his shoulder. A small gesture, almost motherly, though she was young enough to be his daughter. "I'll check on you as soon as I can," she said. Samuel nodded. "You be careful up there." "I will." "And Maya?" "Yes, sir." He looked past her toward Jonathan, then back at her with the faintest smile. "You should have told folks who your daddy was." Maya smiled gently. "Then they might have treated me right for the wrong reason." Samuel's eyes grew serious. "Maybe. But they treated you wrong for no reason at all." That stayed with her. A minute later, Maya stepped into the hallway. The crowd parted, not because of Jonathan this time, but because something about her had become visible to them. Not power, not family, character. The kind people often miss until injustice frames it in bright light. Jonathan fell into step beside her as they moved toward the elevator. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "No," Maya said. He nodded, accepting the honesty. Then she added, "But I'm working." A small, sad smile touched his face. "That sounds like you." Behind them, Collins stood near room 7, watching the hallway that no longer belonged to him in the same way. Ahead of them, the VIP elevator opened with a soft chime, waiting to carry Maya toward the infectious suite, the frightened investor, and the next test of a morning that had already revealed more than anyone at Street. Catherine was ready to face. The VIP elevator closed with a soft chime, and for the first time since Jonathan William entered the hospital, Maya felt the eyes on her disappear behind polished steel doors. For 3 floors, neither she nor her father spoke. The elevator smelled faintly of disinfectant and expensive cologne, the kind that drifted down from executive offices and private suites. Maya stood with her hands folded in front of her, watching the numbers climb. Her arm still ached where Dr. Collins had grabbed her. She could feel the shape of his fingers under the sleeve of her scrubs, not as pain exactly, but as a reminder. Some people did not have to know you to decide how much respect you deserved. Jonathan noticed her rubbing the spot again. Maya, he said quietly, I'm okay. That's not what I asked. She glanced at him. He was still in his black tactical jacket, shoulders broad, jaw tight, eyes forward. To the rest of Atlanta, he was Commander William, the man who walked into armed standoffs, who gave calm briefings after terrible nights, who could make a room full of officers listen without raising his voice. To Maya, he was still the father who once sat on the edge of her bed after her first hard day of nursing school and told her that compassion without boundaries could turn into a wound. She looked back at the elevator doors. I don't have time to be upset. That doesn't mean you aren't. No, she admitted. It just means Mr. Whitmore is still upstairs. Jonathan breathed out through his nose, the closest he came to a sigh in public. You don't owe that man anything. I owe the patient care. You know what I meant. I do. Maya's voice softened. But if I start choosing who deserves care based on how people around them treated me, I become part of the thing I hate. The elevator reached the VIP floor. The doors opened to a quieter world. The 4th floor of Street Catherine Medical Center did not look like the emergency department. The lights were warmer. The floors shone like someone polished them by the hour. Framed photographs of Atlanta hung along the walls. Skyline at sunset, dogwoods in bloom, an old church with red brick and white columns. There were no crowded chairs, no vending machines humming beside tired families, no children crying into jackets. Even fear was better dressed up here. A nurse stood near the isolation suite doors, holding a clipboard too tightly. Her name badge read, Lindsay Parker. She looked relieved and guilty at the same time when she saw Maya. Oh, thank God, Lindsay said, then immediately seemed to realize how that sounded. I mean, he's been asking for someone. Maya stopped in front of her. Do we have exposure details? Lindsay blinked. They said possible respiratory infection. He returned from a business retreat in Singapore 2 days ago. Fever, cough, chills, shortness of breath. He refused to go through the ER because he didn't want a scene. Jonathan's eyes narrowed. So, he came through a private entrance? Lindsay looked uncomfortable. That's what I was told. Maya's face changed, not with surprise, but with professional concern. Who has been in the room? His assistant, Mr. Everett. Dr. Collins for maybe 2 minutes. One tech brought water, and then left. Were they masked? Lindsay hesitated. Maya had her answer. She looked toward the isolation door. Where's infectious disease? On the way. Puh. Lindsay pointed toward a cart. Gowns, gloves, N95s, face shields. Negative pressure is active. Maya checked the cart herself. She counted with her eyes, then pulled out a gown, mask, gloves, and face shield. I need you outside the door. Nobody enters without signing in and wearing proper equipment. Nobody leaves without doffing correctly. If he needs labs, call the team and make sure they follow protocol. No shortcuts because his name is on a wall downstairs. Lindsay flushed. Understood. Jonathan watched quietly, and the pride in his face did not soften the worry. Maya, he said, low enough that only she heard. She paused with the N95 in her hands. If this isn't safe, you step out. If it isn't safe, I make it safe. That is not the same thing. She looked at him then, and for a moment the daughter showed through the nurse. Dad, I can't do my job with you standing here like you're waiting to breach a door. A faint smile touched his mouth despite everything. Force of habit. I know, but this is my room. He nodded slowly. Then I'll stand outside it. Maya put on the N95, pressing the metal strip over her nose. And Dad? Yes. Don't arrest anybody while I'm in there. His expression did not change. I make no promises. For the first time that morning, Maya almost laughed. Then she turned toward the suite. Inside, Martin Whitmore did not look like power. He looked like a sick man. He sat propped against white pillows in a private room larger than some studio apartments, his silver hair damp with sweat, his expensive shirt replaced by a hospital gown he clearly hated. A thick robe lay over the chair beside him. A leather briefcase sat on the table as if business might still save him from biology. His face was flushed, and when he coughed, the sound came deep and harsh from his chest. He looked at Maya through fever-bright eyes. "Finally," he rasped. "Do you people understand how long I've been waiting?" Maya closed the door behind her and kept her voice steady. "Good morning, Mr. Whitmore. I'm Nurse William. I'm going to assess you now." He coughed again, then grimaced. "I asked for someone 20 minutes ago. I understand. I don't think you do. I fund half this hospital." Maya moved to the sink and washed her gloved hands by habit, even though she had already sanitized outside. "Right now, what matters is your breathing." He stared at her as if unused to being redirected. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes, sir. And you're the nurse they sent?" Maya turned to face him. "I'm the nurse who came." Something in that answer quieted him for a moment. Maya approached the bed with her stethoscope. "When did the fever start?" "Last night. Highest temperature? 103, I think. Any chest pain?" "No. Just coughing. Chills." My assistant said I sounded terrible. "Any known exposure at the retreat?" He looked away. "A few people were sick." "How many?" "I don't know. Mr. Whitmore, I need facts, not pride." His eyes snapped back to her. No one had spoken to him like that in a long time. Maybe not ever in a hospital wing his money helped build. Maya held his gaze without aggression. "You may have exposed people in this building. That includes staff, patients, and visitors. Some of them are elderly. Some are immunocompromised. Some are children. I need accurate information so we can protect them." His anger faded into something less comfortable. Fear. He coughed into his mask, then whispered, 6. Maybe 7 people were sick before I left. Maya nodded. "Thank you. Any testing done?" "No." "Because you didn't want to delay your flight?" He looked at her sharply. Maya did not apologize. She checked his oxygen saturation. Lower than she wanted. "I'm increasing your oxygen. Infectious disease is coming. We'll need labs, respiratory panel, imaging if ordered, and a full contact list." Whitmore leaned back, suddenly looking older than his tailored reputation. "Am I in danger?" Maya adjusted the tubing. "You are sick. We're going to take that seriously." "That's not an answer. It's the honest one." For a moment, he stared at her. Then his eyes moved to the faint redness on her upper arm where Collins had grabbed her. "What happened to you?" Maya did not look down. "A disagreement downstairs." "About me?" She remained quiet. Whitmore understood enough. His fevered face tightened. Not with guilt exactly, but with the beginning of it. "Someone refused to come in here," he said. Maya checked his pulse. "Several people were afraid." "And you weren't?" "I was with another patient who needed me. But you came anyway, when it was safe for him to be handed off." Whitmore studied her through the mask and face shield. The illness had stripped some of the arrogance from him, leaving behind a man old enough to know that money could buy buildings, but not one more breath when the lungs refused to cooperate. Down the hall, outside the suite, Jonathan stood with Lindsay and Paul Everett. Dr. Collins arrived a minute later, pretending he had not been summoned by shame. He looked toward the closed isolation door, then at Jonathan, then away. Everett spoke carefully. "Commander, I want to assure you this hospital takes these matters seriously." Jonathan's eyes remained on the door. "Which matters?" Everett hesitated. "Patient safety, staff conduct, all of it. You took it seriously after I arrived." The words were not loud, but they hit their mark. Collins stiffened. "With respect, Commander, you don't understand the pressures of hospital administration." Jonathan turned to him. "I understand pressure very well. I also understand what a man looks like when he uses it as an excuse." Collins had no answer. Inside the suite, Maya finished her first assessment and stepped back. Whitmore's breathing was still rough, but the oxygen was helping. She documented quickly on the bedside tablet, then looked at him. "Mr. Whitmore, I need you to listen carefully. Until we know what this is, you stay here. No visitors except essential staff. No assistant coming in and out. No calls demanding exceptions. He gave a weak laugh. You don't soften things much, do you? No, sir. Not when people could get hurt. He closed his eyes. Good. That surprised her. He opened them again. Most people soften everything around me. It's exhausting. Maya's expression remained professional, but something in her eased by half an inch. Then, today, must be refreshing. A faint smile broke through his fever. Maybe not the word I'd use. A knock sounded at the glass. The infectious disease physician had arrived outside, pulling on PPE. Maya nodded through the window. Before she stepped away from the bed, Whitmore spoke again. Nurse William. Yes, sir. That patient downstairs. The one you didn't want to leave. Mr. Harris. Is he alive? Maya looked at him for a moment. Yes. Whitmore swallowed. Good. It was not enough. Not nearly enough. But it was something. Maya exited the suite through the proper doffing area, removing each piece of PPE with deliberate care. When she finally stepped into the hall, Jonathan straightened. His eyes went immediately to her face. Well? He asked. He's stable for now. Infectious disease is taking over. And you? Maya looked past him toward the elevator. I need to check on Mr. Harris. Collins stepped forward. Nurse William, before you go anywhere, we need to discuss. Jonathan turned his head. Collins stopped. Maya looked at the doctor. Calm, but no longer willing to make herself smaller. No, Dr. Collins. You need to discuss why a possible infectious patient entered through a private route, why staff refused the assignment without a proper response plan, and why you tried to drag me away from an unstable cardiac patient instead of escalating care. Lindsay looked down. Everett went pale. Maya continued, her voice quiet but clear. I'm going back to my patient. No one stopped her. As she walked toward the elevator, Jonathan fell into step beside her. This time, he did not ask if she was okay. He already knew the answer was complicated. Behind them, the VIP floor remained silent, filled with polished furniture, expensive art, and the uncomfortable sound of powerful people realizing that money could open private doors, but it could not close the truth once it had walked in. The elevator carried Maya and her father back down toward the emergency department, and the lower it went, the more the polished quiet of the VIP floor faded into the living noise of the hospital. Maya could hear it before the doors opened. Phones ringing, wheels rattling, voices calling for lab results, a child crying somewhere near triage, the overhead speaker paging someone to radiology. It was not peaceful. It was not pretty, but it was honest in a way the VIP floor had not been. Down here, sickness did not wear a tailored suit. It came in work boots, church dresses, bus uniforms, old cardigans, and frightened faces. The doors opened. Grace was waiting near the nurse's station, and the moment Maya saw her face, she knew Samuel Harris had not stayed stable. What happened? Maya asked, already moving. Grace turned with her. Pressure dropped again. Cardiology is on the way. We started fluids carefully. Repeat EKG is worse, and he's asking for you. Maya quickened her pace. Chest pain? Still there. Shortness of breath? More than before. Jonathan followed a few steps behind. Saying nothing, the officers who had come with him remained near the lobby now, speaking quietly with hospital security and looking deeply out of place among families holding flowers and paper cups of coffee. Room 7 was brighter than Maya remembered, crowded with urgency now that people had finally decided Samuel's condition deserved attention. The young resident stood near the monitor. A respiratory therapist adjusted the oxygen. A cart waited just outside the door. Dr. Collins was there too, though not at the center anymore. He looked like a man trying to stand where authority should be and discovering it had moved. Samuel turned his head when Maya came in. There she is, he whispered. I told you I'd check on you, Maya said, taking her place beside him. You went to see that rich fellow? I did. He alive? For now. Samuel managed a weak smile. Then, you're 2 for 2. Maya smiled back, but her eyes were on the monitor. Let's make sure you stay on my scoreboard. Grace handed her the latest vitals. Maya read them quickly. The numbers were worse, but not hopeless. That was the space she knew best. the narrow strip between fear and action, where time became precious and every careless second had a cost. Cardiology arrived 2 minutes later, led by Dr. Ellen Park, a compact woman in her 50s with short black hair and the steady expression of someone who did not waste energy on drama when medicine needed clarity. "What do we have?" Dr. Park asked. Maya answered before Collins could. 68-year-old male. Chest pressure since this morning. Left arm heaviness. Worsening EKG changes. Pressure trending down. Increased shortness of breath. Still alert but anxious. He needs immediate cardiac intervention evaluation. Dr. Park took the EKG strip from Maya and studied it. "How long has he been trending this way?" Maya's jaw tightened. "Long enough that I didn't want to leave him." Dr. Park looked up, catching something in the sentence. Her eyes moved from Maya to Collins, then to Jonathan standing in the doorway. She was smart enough to know there was a story, and experienced enough to know the patient came first. "We're moving him," Dr. Park said. "Now," the room responded. This time, people moved for Samuel. Not for Whitmore money. Not for Collins's pride. Not because someone important was watching. They moved because the old man in the bed had a heart that needed help. And finally, the system around him remembered what it was built for. Samuel looked scared as the team prepared him for transfer. "Maya," he said, reaching for her. She took his hand. "I'm here. They taking me to surgery? Maybe a procedure first. Dr. Park will explain everything." "She's good." Dr. Park leaned in from the other side. "Mr. Harris, we need to take a closer look at your heart and open anything that may be blocked. We're going to move quickly, but we'll talk you through it." Samuel swallowed. "My daughter's at work. I don't want her to come here and find me gone." Maya squeezed his hand. "What's her name?" "Tanya. Number in your chart?" He nodded. Maya looked at Grace. "Call Tanya. Tell her he's awake, he's being treated, and she needs to come to Street Catherine. Don't scare her, but don't soften it too much." Grace nodded. "I'll call her myself." Samuel closed his eyes for a moment. "Thank you." As the team unlocked the bed and began moving him toward the hall, Samuel refused to release Maya's hand until the last possible second. When their fingers finally parted, his wedding ring brushed her glove. "Tell Evelyn I'm trying," he murmured. Maya bent close. "You tell her yourself someday, many years from now." That made his mouth tremble. Almost a smile. Almost a prayer. They wheeled him out. Maya stood in the doorway as Samuel disappeared down the corridor with the cardiology team. The urgency went with him, leaving behind the scattered evidence of what had almost happened. Used wrappers, a blood pressure cuff, the chair she had been sitting in when Collins first ordered her to stand, the small dent in the rolling tray where his tablet had landed too hard. Jonathan came to her side. "You saved time," he said. "I lost time. You fought for it." She shook her head. "Not enough." "Maya." She looked at him then, and the composure she had been holding since morning cracked just slightly around the edges. "He was scared, Dad." Collins yelled over him like he wasn't even there. Then he pulled me away in front of him. "Do you know what that does to a patient who already thinks nobody sees him?" Jonathan's face hardened again, but his voice stayed gentle. "I know what it does to a human being." Maya looked toward the hallway where Samuel had gone. "I wanted to be treated fairly, but more than that, I wanted him treated like he mattered." Before Jonathan could answer, Paul Everett approached with 2 administrators and a woman from legal whose name badge read Denise Caldwell. They came carefully, like people approaching a dog that had not barked yet but might. "Commander William," Everett said. "Nurse William, we need to address what occurred." Maya turned to him. "Now you do?" Denise Caldwell spoke quickly, professional and controlled. "We are opening an internal review." Jonathan gave her a flat look. "That sounds convenient." "It's necessary," Denise said. "A physical contact allegation involving staff is serious." Maya's eyes narrowed. "It's not an allegation." He grabbed me. Grace, who had returned from calling Tanya, stepped forward. "I saw it." The young security guard near the desk raised his hand slightly. "I saw it too." A resident said from behind the computer. "So did I." One by one, the room stopped. Pretending. Denise looked at Collins, who stood near the opposite wall with his arms folded and his face tight. "Dr. Collins?" Collins's voice was clipped. "I made contact with an employee who refused a direct assignment during a critical staffing shortage. The situation has been exaggerated." Maya stared at him. There it was again. The clean language people use to wash dirt from their hands. Made contact. Direct assignment. Staffing shortage. Exaggerated. Jonathan took one step toward Collins. Maya touched his arm. It was a small gesture, but it stopped him. "No," she said softly. "Let him finish." Collins looked almost relieved, mistaking her restraint for weakness. "I was trying to ensure Mr. Whitmore received timely care," he said. "Nurse William was insubordinate." Maya nodded slowly. "And Mr. Harris?" Collins blinked. "What? Was he critical? He required evaluation. Was his blood pressure dropping?" Collins looked away for half a second. "It was being monitored." "Was his EKG worsening?" No answer. Maya's voice remained calm. "Did I tell you he needed rapid response?" Collins said nothing. Grace stepped in. She did. More than once. Denise wrote something down. Everett looked increasingly pale. From the hallway, a voice interrupted. "Excuse me." Everyone turned. A middle-aged black woman in a postal service jacket stood near the entrance to the ER, breathing hard as if she had run from the parking lot. Her eyes were wide with terror. "I'm looking for my father," she said. "Samuel Harris. Someone called me." Maya immediately moved toward her. "Tanya?" The woman nodded. "I'm Maya William. I was caring for your father. He's with cardiology now. He was awake when they took him. He asked for you." Tanya pressed both hands to her mouth. "Is he going to die?" Maya did not give her a false answer. She gave her a steady one. "He is very sick, but he is getting the care he needs now. I'll take you to the right waiting area." Tanya stared at her, then looked past her at the cluster of administrators, the doctor, the officers, the tension hanging in the hallway. She understood, somehow, that something had happened before she arrived. "My daddy said not to trust hospitals," Tanya whispered. "After my mama died, he said folks like us have to make noise or get forgotten." Maya's throat tightened. "He made noise today," she said. "So did I." Tanya took her hand. "Thank you for seeing him." Those 5 words landed harder than all the insults from Dr. Collins. Maya walked Tanya toward cardiology, leaving the administrators behind in a silence they had earned. Jonathan watched his daughter guide a frightened woman through the hallway with the same care she had given Samuel, the same steady voice, the same refusal to let fear turn into chaos. And in that moment, the story inside Street Catherine began to change. It was no longer just about a doctor who had grabbed a nurse. It was about a hospital that had chosen a donor before a dying man, a staff that had passed danger down to the person with the least protection, and a young black nurse who had stood in the gap until the truth became too loud to ignore. By the time Maya brought Tanya Harris to the cardiology waiting area, the story had already begun traveling through Street Catherine Medical Center. It moved faster than an official memo and quieter than an alarm. It passed from nurse to nurse, from security guard to receptionist, from a resident pretending not to gossip to a tech who had seen everything from the end of the hallway. By noon, people in radiology knew that Dr. Collins had grabbed the new nurse. By 12:15, the cafeteria knew the new nurse was Commander Jonathan Williams' daughter. By 12:20, someone in billing whispered that the investor upstairs might have exposed half the executive floor because nobody wanted to upset him at the private entrance. And beneath all of it was the part that made people lower their voices. Maya had been right. Samuel Harris had not been fine. He had not been dramatic. He had not been a routine old man with chest pain who could wait while richer men were served first. He had been a person standing at the edge of a medical crisis, and the nurse everyone dismissed had seen it before the people with power chose to believe it. Tanya sat in the waiting area with her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. She was in her mid-40s, still wearing her postal service jacket, with a work badge clipped to her pocket and tears she kept wiping away before they could fully fall. Maya sat beside her for a moment. Even though she knew the ER was still short-staffed, even though she knew administrators were gathering downstairs, even though she knew her father was probably one bad sentence away from turning the hospital lobby into a command briefing. "My daddy hates waiting rooms," Tanya said. "Most people do," Maya answered. "No, I mean he really hates them. My mama died in one. Not this hospital, another one. But after that, he said the worst sound in the world was a nurse walking toward you slow." Maya looked at her. "I'm sorry." Tanya nodded, staring at the double doors where they had taken Samuel. "He still wears his wedding ring. Talks to her every morning. Tells her when the Braves lose like she didn't already know from heaven." Maya smiled softly. "He told me about Evelyn's peach cobbler. That broke something in Tanya's face. Not completely. Just enough for grief and gratitude to appear together. He talks about that cobbler to everybody," she said. "Mama used canned peaches too. Lied for years." Maya let out a quiet laugh. He didn't mention that part. He wouldn't. Still protecting her reputation. For a few seconds, they sat together in the kind of silence women understand without having to explain it. Not empty silence. Not awkward silence. A silence that holds fear while it catches its breath. Then Tanya turned to her. "Why did that doctor try to make you leave him?" Maya looked toward the hallway. She could have softened it. She could have said staffing was complicated, that hospitals were under pressure, that mistakes happened in busy departments. All of that would have sounded professional. Some of it might even have been true. But Tanya did not ask for a hospital statement. She asked, as a daughter, because another patient had more money attached to his name, Maya said. Tanya closed her eyes. "Lord, I'm sorry." Tanya shook her head. "Don't apologize for telling the truth. Folks have been dressing up ugly things in nice words for too long." Maya felt that sentence settle somewhere deep. Before she could answer, Dr. Ellen Park came through the double doors. Her expression was serious, but not defeated. Tanya stood so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "My father." Dr. Park removed her glasses and held them in one hand. "Mr. Harris had a significant blockage. We were able to intervene quickly. He's not out of the woods yet, but he made it through the procedure, and he is stable right now." Tanya covered her mouth. Her knees seemed to weaken, and Maya reached for her elbow. "He's alive?" Tanya whispered. "He's alive," Dr. Park said. Tanya turned and grabbed Maya before either of them expected it. She hugged her hard, the kind of hug that comes from terror leaving the body all at once. Maya stood still for half a second, surprised, then gently hugged her back. "Thank you," Tanya said into her shoulder. "Thank you for not leaving him." Maya looked over Tanya's shoulder at Dr. Park, who had heard enough to understand more than she wanted to. "Doctor," Park's face tightened, not with anger that burned hot, but with the kind that becomes a record. "I'll speak with you downstairs," Dr. Park said to Maya. "Soon." Maya nodded. When she returned to the emergency department, the atmosphere had changed again. Not louder, not calmer, just aware. People stopped talking when she passed, then realized stopping made them look guilty, so they started talking again too quickly. A young nurse who had laughed at her lunch container 2 weeks earlier looked like she wanted to apologize but did not know how to start. The security guard who had touched her arm stepped aside with his eyes lowered. "Nurse William," he said quietly. Maya stopped. He swallowed. "I'm sorry. I should have questioned it." Maya looked at him for a moment. He was young, maybe 24, with a face that had not yet learned how to hide shame well. "Yes," she said. "You should have." He nodded, accepting it. Then she added, "Next time, do better before someone gets hurt." "I will." She believed he wanted to. She did not yet know whether he would. Near the nurse's station, Grace was waiting with 2 cups of coffee, one of them untouched. She handed it to Maya without making a speech. "Cream, no sugar," Grace said. "I guessed. You guessed right. I figured anybody that calm under fire doesn't need sugar." Maya took the cup. "That's not medical science. It's Southern science. Older." Despite herself, Maya smiled. Grace leaned against the counter and lowered her voice. "Samuel, stable after intervention." Grace closed her eyes briefly. "Thank God." "Yes." "And Whitmore?" "Stable. Infectious disease is handling him. He should have gone through the ER like everyone else." Grace glanced toward the executive hallway. People like that don't think rules are for them. No, Maya said. People around them teach them that. Grace looked at her for a long moment. I'm sorry, Maya. Maya stared down into the coffee. For what part? Grace flinched slightly, but she deserved the question. And she knew it. For not stepping in sooner. For watching Collins talk to you like that for weeks. For telling myself you were strong enough to handle it, when really I just didn't want to risk becoming his next target. Maya did not rush to comfort her. Forgiveness given too quickly sometimes becomes a way for everyone else to stop feeling responsible. Finally, Maya said, I was strong enough to handle my feelings. That doesn't mean he had the right to do it. Grace nodded, eyes damp. You're right. I know. Grace gave a small laugh through her guilt. You don't soften much either. I soften where it helps. And where it doesn't. Maya looked toward Dr. Collins's office. I document. That was when Paul Everett appeared again with Denise Caldwell from legal, Dr. Park, and 2 members of hospital administration. Jonathan William was already with them, standing near the consultation room with his arms folded. Dr. Collins stood apart from the group, looking less like a department chief now and more like a man waiting for weather he could not stop. Everett cleared his throat. Nurse William, we'd like to speak with you. Maya glanced at the patient board. Is this about patient care or liability? Denise answered honestly. Both. Maya appreciated that more than she expected. They moved into a small consultation room off the ER. The space was meant for families receiving hard news, which made it painfully appropriate. There were 4 chairs, a box of tissues, a small table, and a painting of a quiet lake that had probably never comforted anyone. Jonathan remained standing. Maya sat. Dr. Collins sat across from her, his posture rigid. Everett and Denise stood near the wall. Dr. Park closed the door and leaned against it. Denise began. Nurse William, we need a full account of what occurred from the moment Dr. Collins entered room 7. Maya looked at Collins. Then she told the truth. She did not embellish. She did not shake. She did not add anger where facts were enough. She described Samuel's condition, the dropping blood pressure, the worsening pain, the request to leave for the isolation suite, the fact that other nurses had refused, Collins's threats, his hand on her arm, the force of the pull, Samuel's panic, and the delay in calling rapid response. When she finished, the room was quiet. Denise turned to Collins. Doctor? Collins adjusted his cuffs. I disagree with the characterization. Jonathan's eyes lifted. Collins continued carefully. The emergency department was under strain. Mr. Whitmore presented a serious infectious concern. I made a staffing decision. Nurse William refused that decision and escalated the interaction. Dr. Park spoke before anyone else could. Samuel Harris had a significant cardiac blockage. Delay could have killed him. Collins looked at her. With respect, Ellen, that is hindsight. No, Dr. Park said. That is medicine. Maya identified the deterioration in real time. You ignored it. The words struck clean. Everett's face sagged. Denise wrote something down. Jonathan finally spoke. You grabbed my daughter. Collins turned toward him. Commander, I understand your personal concern. But, no, Jonathan said. You don't. Because if you understood personal concern, you would have understood Mr. Harris was someone's father before mine walked in. Nobody moved. Maya looked at her father, and for the first time, all morning, she felt tears threaten the back of her eyes, not because she needed him to defend her, but because he had defended Samuel first. Denise closed her folder halfway. Pending formal review, Dr. Collins, you are relieved of direct supervisory authority in the emergency department. Collins stared at her. You can't be serious. Everett looked miserable. Richard, this is temporary while we investigate. This hospital is going to punish me because she happens to be his daughter? Maya's voice cut through the room, quiet and steady. No. This hospital is finally noticing what you did because I happen to be his daughter. That's not the same thing. Collins had no answer. Outside the room, the ER kept moving. Patients still needed blankets, medication, water, answers, mercy. The work did not pause because truth had arrived. It never did. Maya stood. I need to get back to my shift. Everett blinked. After everything, you still want to work? Maya looked at him as if the question itself revealed the problem. My patients are still here. Jonathan opened the door for her. As Maya stepped back into the emergency department, Grace looked up from the nurse's station. The young security guard stood a little straighter. Somewhere down the hall, a patient laughed at something a nurse said. Life, stubborn and ordinary, continued. Maya took one breath, clipped her badge straight, and walked toward the next call light. Maya had barely reached the next call light when her phone buzzed in her scrub pocket. She ignored it at first. A patient in room 12 needed help adjusting his blanket. An elderly woman near triage wanted to know if her daughter had called. A young mother with a toddler on her lap was crying quietly because nobody had explained the test results yet. The emergency department did not care that Maya had been humiliated, defended, questioned, and vindicated all before lunch. Pain kept arriving. Fear kept asking for names. Work kept raising its hand. But the phone buzzed again. Grace looked over from the nurse's station. You can take that. Maya shook her head. It can wait. Maya, Grace said gently. Your father has been standing outside the consultation room like a statue with a badge for 20 minutes. If that's him, take the call before he arrests the phone. Maya glanced toward the hallway. Jonathan William was there, speaking quietly with one of his officers. He was not looking at her, but she knew him well enough to know that did not mean he was not watching. She pulled out her phone. Dad, your mother heard something happened. Maya closed her eyes for half a second. That was worse than legal. She typed back, I'm fine. The reply came almost instantly. Dad, that won't work on her. Maya almost smiled despite herself. A moment later, her phone rang. The screen read Mom. Grace saw the name and made a sympathetic face. Good luck. Maya stepped into a quieter alcove near the linen carts and answered. Hi, Mama. Denise Williams' voice came through warm, sharp, and already worried. Do not. Hi, Mama me. Like you didn't just have half of Atlanta calling my house. Maya leaned against the wall. Half of Atlanta does not have your number. Church ladies do. That's worse. Maya rubbed her forehead. I'm okay. Your father said a doctor put hands on you. Of course he had. Jonathan could face armed suspects without blinking, but he had never mastered the art of telling Denise only part of the truth. It happened, Maya said. It's being handled. Handled by who? Administration. Legal. Dad. That last one is what worries me. Maya looked across the ER. Jonathan was still calm, but his calm had edges. He's behaving. I've been married to that man for 32 years. I know what behaving looks like on him, and I know what planning looks like. Maya laughed softly, and the sound surprised her. It was the first easy sound she had made all day. Her mother heard it and softened. Baby, are you hurt? Maya looked down at her arm. The ache had settled into a dull throb. Not badly. That is not, no, ma'am. Denise was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, the worry had deepened into something older. I told your father we should have let people know who you were when you started there. Mama, I know. You wanted to stand on your own. You wanted to earn your own name. I respected that. But respecting it does not mean I liked it. Maya watched a nurse hurry past with a tray of supplies. If they only treat me well because of Dad, they aren't treating me well. They're treating the threat behind me. And if they treat you badly because they think no one is behind you? Maya had no fast answer. Her mother sighed. That's the thing about this world, Maya. Sometimes folks don't show you who they are until they think you have no protection. Those words settled into the same place Samuel's daughter had touched earlier. Folks have been dressing up ugly things in nice words for too long. I know, Maya said. No, baby. Today you know different. Across the ER, Tanya Harris appeared near the cardiology hallway, speaking to Grace. Her face looked exhausted but relieved. Maya lifted a hand. Tanya returned the gesture, then pressed both palms together in thanks. Mama, Mr. Harris made it through the procedure. The patient you stayed with? Yes. Then you did right. Maya swallowed. I almost didn't get to. But you fought. I did my job. Sometimes that is the fight. Maya closed her eyes briefly. Her mother had a way of saying plain things that sounded like they had been waiting years to be spoken. I have to go, Maya said. I know. Eat something. I will. You won't. Maya smiled. I'll try. And Maya? Yes, ma'am? Do not make yourself smaller just to keep other people comfortable. Your father wears a badge. You wear a badge too. Yours just has different letters. Maya looked down at the plastic ID clipped to her chest. Maya William, RN. Yes, ma'am, she said softly. When the call ended, she stood still for a moment beside the linen carts, letting the noise of the ER return to her piece by piece. Then she heard Collins. His office door was partly open. His voice carried from inside, low but angry, the way people speak when they think a closed door makes them invisible. This is absurd, he said. The board is overreacting because of who her father is. Another voice answered. Paul Everett. Richard, you grabbed an employee in front of witnesses. I redirected a nurse. You dragged her away from a cardiac patient. I was managing resources. Maya did not move. There it was again. Managing resources. Redirected. Staffing decision. Words polished, smooth enough to hide the handprint underneath. Everett lowered his voice. The problem is bigger than the contact. Collins scoffed. Of course it is. Now everyone wants to turn this into race, class, power. Whatever language makes them feel noble. Maya's fingers tightened around her phone. Everett said, You told her to remember her place. Silence. Then Collins replied, quieter but not regretful. She needed to. Maya felt the sentence enter her body like cold water. She had been insulted before. She had been underestimated. She had been spoken over by men who thought volume was intelligence. But hearing him say it behind a door, stripped of the performance, told her something important. This had not been a bad moment. It had been a belief. Grace appeared beside her, following her gaze to the office. You heard? Maya nodded. Grace's face tightened. I'm sorry. Maya turned away from the door. Stop apologizing. Start remembering. Grace looked at her, then nodded slowly. Okay. They walked back toward the nurse's station together. The young nurse who had whispered about Maya's lunch weeks earlier stood there, twisting a pen between her fingers. Her name was Kelsey, 26, pretty, nervous, and suddenly much younger than she had seemed when she was laughing with others. Maya, Kelsey said. Can I talk to you? Maya stopped. Is it about a patient? No. Kelsey swallowed. It's about me. Grace started to step away, but Maya shook her head slightly. Let her stay. Kelsey looked miserable. I said things. Not today, but before. About you. About your car. And your lunch. And other stuff. Maya waited. I was wrong, Kelsey said. And it was mean. And I think I told myself it wasn't a big deal because everybody jokes. But it was a big deal. I'm sorry. The ER moved around them, but the small space between the three women grew still. Maya studied her face. Kelsey looked genuinely ashamed. But shame was easy after consequences arrived. The harder part was what came before. Why did you do it? Maya asked. Kelsey blinked. I don't know. That's not good enough. Kelsey's eyes dropped. Because you were new, and people were already talking, and it felt easier to join in than to be the person who said stop. Maya nodded once. That answer, at least, had honesty in it. Then next time, be the person who says stop. I will. I hope so, Maya said. Because people hear more than you think, and even when they don't answer, it still lands. Kelsey's eyes filled. I'm sorry. I heard you. It was not forgiveness. Not rejection either. It was a door left closed for now, with the possibility that time and changed behavior might open it later. Before Kelsey could say more, the overhead speaker crackled. Code Gray, main lobby. Security response requested. Code Gray, main lobby. Every head lifted. Grace whispered, Oh no. Jonathan, who had been near the consultation room, immediately straightened. His officers moved before being told. In hospitals, Code Gray meant a violent or combative person. In a morning already strained thin, it could mean anything. Maya looked toward the lobby entrance. Where's Whitmore's assistant? Grace frowned. I thought he was upstairs. Another announcement followed. More urgent. Code Gray. Main lobby. Possible exposure concern. Security and clinical supervisor to main lobby. Maya's stomach tightened. Possible exposure. She moved before anyone gave her permission. Grace followed. Jonathan saw them and fell into step from the other direction. Maya? If Whitmore's assistant left the isolation floor, he may have exposed people. Jonathan's face changed. Stay behind me. No. Maya, this is infection control, not a raid. And if he's violent, then you can be useful. They reached the lobby together. The polished entrance of Street Catherine had transformed from calm to chaos. Families stood back from the center of the room. A security guard held up both hands, trying to calm a man in an expensive gray suit who was coughing into his fist while shouting at the front desk. His tie hung loose. Sweat shone on his forehead. He had no mask. I am not staying in some room like a prisoner, the man yelled. Mr. Whitmore needs his phone, and I am getting his bag from the car. Maya recognized the name from upstairs. The assistant. Lindsay Parker stood near the elevator, pale. He slipped out while I was calling infectious disease. I told him to stop. The assistant coughed again, then pointed at her. You people are overreacting. Maya stepped forward. Sir, my name is Nurse William. I need you to put on a mask. He turned on her. I don't work for you. No, Maya said. But your lungs don't know that. Jonathan almost smiled. Almost. The assistant blinked, thrown off by her calm. Maya held out a surgical mask from a nearby station. You were in close contact with Mr. Whitmore. He has fever and respiratory symptoms after possible exposure. You may be contagious. The people in this lobby did not consent to that risk. He looked around. For the first time, he seemed to see the elderly woman gripping her walker, the child pressed against his mother's coat, the man in a chemotherapy cap sitting near the window. His anger faltered, but pride tried to rescue it. I feel fine. You're coughing. It's allergies. Then the mask won't hurt. Jonathan stepped beside Maya, not in front of her this time. His voice was quiet. Put it on. The assistant looked at him, saw the badge, the officers, the face of a man whose patience had limits, and took the mask. Fine, he muttered. Maya pointed toward the side corridor. You need to return upstairs for screening and isolation guidance, I said. Fine. No, Maya said. You said the word. Now do the action. For a moment, the entire lobby watched a young black nurse direct a powerful man's assistant, while the SWAT commander stood beside her, silent and proud. The assistant lowered his eyes and moved toward the elevator with Lindsay. As the lobby slowly exhaled, an elderly woman near the chairs spoke up. That nurse right there has more sense than this whole fancy building. A few people chuckled nervously. Someone clapped once, then stopped, embarrassed. But the feeling had already changed. Maya did not bask in it. She turned to Lindsay. After he's upstairs, get a list of everyone he passed within 6 feet. Start with the lobby desk, elevator, and private entrance. Lindsay nodded. Yes, Nurse William. Not Maya. Not the new girl. Nurse William. Jonathan heard the difference too. Maya turned and found her father watching her with an expression she had seen only a few times in her life. After graduations, after funerals, after moments when pride and sadness had to share the same room. What? She asked. He shook his head. Nothing. Dad. He looked toward the elevator where the assistant had disappeared. Your mother is right. About what? He smiled faintly. Your badge does have different letters. Maya looked down at her ID again. Maya William, RN. For the first time that day, she touched it, not to straighten it, but to feel its weight. Then another call light flashed from the ER hallway, and the moment passed, because work always called the good ones back before the applause could find them. The call light flashing from the ER hallway pulled Maya back into motion before the lobby could decide what to do with its own silence. She left the polished entrance behind and returned to the emergency department, where the air was heavier, warmer, and more honest. Grace was already moving toward room 9 with a blanket over one arm, and Kelsey was speaking softly to the young mother whose toddler had finally stopped crying. The department still looked like itself, still sounded like itself, but something beneath it, had shifted. People moved with a little more care now. They looked at Maya differently, not with fear exactly, and not with the shallow politeness that appears when power enters a room, but with the discomfort of people beginning to understand they had misread someone who had been standing in plain sight. Maya did not have time to help them feel better about that. She answered the call light, adjusted a pillow for a woman recovering from a fall, explained discharge instructions to a man who kept nodding without understanding, and found a warm blanket for an elderly veteran who said he was fine while his hands shook in his lap. Work steadied her. It always had. The rhythm of care gave shape to the anger she could not afford to carry loosely. By early afternoon, Samuel Harris had been moved to cardiac recovery. Tanya had texted Grace that he was awake and asking whether Maya had eaten. Mr. Whitmore remained in isolation, irritated but cooperative, and his assistant had been placed under monitoring after reluctantly admitting he had felt chills since breakfast. The hospital had begun contact tracing with the same energy it usually reserved for donor luncheons, and Dr. Richard Collins had disappeared into administrative silence. That silence did not comfort Maya. Power rarely vanished. It regrouped. She was updating Samuel's chart from the nurse's station when Paul Everett approached with Denise Caldwell beside him. Jonathan William followed a few steps behind, not because he had been invited, but because nobody had yet found the courage to tell him he could not. "Nurse William," Everett said, "we need you in the board conference room." Maya did not look up from the chart. "Is this urgent?" Denise answered. "Yes." "Is it about a patient?" "It's about what happened today." Maya finished typing, saved the note, and logged out. Then, "It can wait until my patient documentation is complete." Everett's face tightened, but Denise gave a small nod, as if she understood exactly what Maya had just done. Maya had not refused. She had simply reminded them that their crisis was not more important than a patient's record. Grace stepped behind the desk. "I've got your rooms for now." Maya looked at her. "Room 12. Needs discharge teaching repeated." Slowly. "He says yes, when he means he's embarrassed." "I know the type," Grace said. "I'll handle it." Maya followed Everett toward the elevator. Jonathan fell into step beside her. "You don't have to come," she said quietly. "Yes, I do. Dad." He looked down at her. "Maya, I have spent 30 years letting you stand on your own because you asked me to. I am not standing in front of you. I am standing beside you." She wanted to argue, but the words found no strength. Maybe because, for once, beside did not feel like interference. The board conference room sat on the top floor behind frosted glass doors. Maya had never been there before. Most nurses had not. It was the kind of room where decisions were made about people who were too busy working to attend. Long mahogany table, leather chairs, bottled water arranged like evidence. A wall of windows overlooking Atlanta. The city spread beneath them in sun and traffic and ordinary struggle. Dr. Collins sat near the far end with his arms folded. His white coat was gone, replaced by a navy suit jacket that made him look less like a doctor and more like a defendant trying to remember he was respected. Two board members sat across from him. Dr. Ellen Park was there too, along with the chief nursing officer, a silver-haired woman named Margaret Hayes, whose expression carried both authority and disappointment. Maya entered without hurry. Every head turned. Everett gestured to a chair. "Please, sit." Maya sat. Jonathan remained standing behind her chair. Collins looked at him. "Is this necessary?" Jonathan said. "Very." Margaret Hayes leaned forward. "Nurse William, we've begun reviewing statements from staff. Before we proceed, I want to say on behalf of nursing leadership that what happened in room 7 should not have happened." Maya looked at her. "No, ma'am. It should not have." Margaret accepted the answer without flinching. "You were placed in an impossible position. I was placed in a predictable one. That made the room still." Denise Caldwell uncapped a pen. "Can you explain what you mean by predictable?" Maya folded her hands on the table. Her arm still hurt, but she did not rub it. "Not here. Not in front of Collins. When dangerous, uncomfortable, or unwanted work comes up, it often rolls downhill," she said. "Today, it rolled past senior staff, past people who felt safe saying no, and landed on the newest nurse in the room. That is predictable. A board member frowned. Are you saying the assignment was discriminatory? Maya looked at him directly. I'm saying you should ask why everyone else was allowed to refuse before I was threatened. The man looked down at his notes. Collins leaned forward. That is a distortion. The department was short-staffed, and Nurse William was available. Maya turned to him. I was with Samuel Harris. You could have handed him off. To whom? Collins paused. Maya did not raise her voice. Grace was not assigned to him. Cardiology had not arrived. His symptoms were worsening. His EKG later confirmed what I was concerned about. So I'll ask again. To whom? Collins's jaw tightened. You are not qualified to challenge every decision made by a physician. Dr. Park spoke calmly. She was qualified to recognize deterioration. She did. You didn't. Collins glared at her. Ellen, with respect. No, Dr. Park said. Do not soften this with respect. A patient nearly paid for your pride. The sentence landed so heavily that even Jonathan looked at her with approval. Margaret turned to Maya. Nurse William, why didn't you tell anyone? Commander William was your father. Maya had expected that question. Still, hearing it in that room made her tired. Because my father is not my credential, she said. My license is. My work is. My patients are. Jonathan's face changed behind her, but he said nothing. Maya continued. I did not come here to be treated well because people fear my last name. I came here to be a nurse. Everett clasped his hands. Surely you can understand how knowing your family connection might have changed how people approached the situation. Maya looked at him. That is exactly the problem. No one spoke. She let the silence hold the words long enough to make them uncomfortable. Then she added, if people in this building need to know who my father is before they decide not to grab my arm, insult me in front of a patient, or send me into a high-risk infectious room because everyone else said no, then the issue is not my privacy. It is your culture. Margaret Hayes lowered her eyes briefly, not in avoidance, but in acknowledgement. Collins pushed back his chair slightly. This is becoming a speech. Jonathan's voice came from behind Maya, low and dangerous. Let her finish. Maya did not look back. She did not need to. She turned to the board. Mr. Harris is alive because Nurse Grace took over, because Dr. Park responded quickly, and because we stopped pretending his life could wait. Mr. Whitmore is receiving care because we followed proper precautions instead of forcing a nurse into a room unprepared. Those are not separate issues. They are the same issue. A hospital cannot claim to value life while ranking people by money, title, race, or convenience. The room was quiet enough to hear traffic far below. One of the board members, an older black man with reading glasses folded in front of him, finally spoke. His nameplate read Charles Benton. My sister died in a hospital waiting room in 1989, he said. Different city, different hospital. Same feeling. Everyone kept saying they were doing their best, but you could tell who they thought was worth hurrying for. No one interrupted him. He looked at Maya. I joined this board because I thought money could fix that. Maya's voice softened. Money can fix buildings. People have to fix priorities. Charles Benton nodded slowly, as if the words hurt because they were true. Collins looked around the table, realizing the room had moved beyond him. I made one difficult decision under pressure. No, Margaret Hayes said. You made several. You ignored clinical concern. You threatened termination. You physically pulled a nurse from a patient's bedside. You delayed escalation. And you referred to a human being as a staffing problem. Collins's face went pale with anger. After 12 years of service, this is how I'm treated? Maya looked at him then, and for the first time, there was sorrow in her expression. Dr. Collins, you are still talking about how you are being treated. That stopped him, not because it changed him. Maya did not know if men like Collins changed in a single afternoon, but it exposed the center of him so clearly that even he seemed, for half a second, to see it. Denise closed her folder. Pending the outcome of the full review, Dr. Collins will remain suspended from supervisory duties. Further action will be determined after witness statements, chart review, and security footage are examined. Collins stood abruptly. This hospital will regret making me the villain. Jonathan answered before anyone else could. No one made you anything. Collins looked at him, then at Maya, then walked out of the room without another word. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded smaller than it should have. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Margaret Hayes turned to Maya. What do you need from this hospital right now? Maya thought of Samuel's frightened eyes, Tanya's shaking hands, Whitmore's fevered arrogance turning into fear, Lindsay standing alone outside isolation, Grace apologizing for silence, Kelsey learning that cruelty repeated in groups still belonged to each person who said it. I need safe staffing, Maya said. Clear isolation protocols that apply to donors too. Protection for nurses who refuse unsafe orders. And I need every patient in that ER treated like someone is coming for them, even if nobody important ever walks through the door. Jonathan looked down at his daughter, and this time the pride in his face was plain. Margaret nodded. Put it in writing. Maya stood. I will. After my shift. Everett blinked. You're returning to the floor? Maya almost smiled. People keep asking me that today. Charles Benton leaned back in his chair. Let the nurse work. As Maya walked out, Jonathan joined her in the hallway. For several steps, neither of them spoke. Then he said, Your grandfather would have liked that line. Which one? Money can fix buildings. People have to fix priorities. Maya looked out the window at Atlanta below, at the traffic moving like blood through the city's veins. Granddad probably would have said it louder. Jonathan chuckled softly. And with more scripture, that made her smile. The elevator doors opened, and Maya stepped inside. Downstairs, call lights were waiting. Patients were waiting. The day was not finished asking things of her. But now, for the first time since morning, the hospital seemed to understand that Maya William was not walking back because she had nowhere else to go. She was walking back because she still believed the work mattered, even when the people in charge forgot why. The elevator carried Maya back down from the boardroom, and when the doors opened on the emergency floor, the first thing she heard was laughter. Not cruel laughter this time. Not the kind that had followed her in whispers during her first weeks at Street Catherine. This was tired, human laughter coming from room 12, where Grace was explaining discharge instructions to an older man who apparently believed reading glasses were a government conspiracy. I've made it 72 years without those little things, the man said. Grace answered, and yet here we are, Mr. Donnelly, because you took your blood pressure pills twice, and your wife nearly called the pastor. Maya stepped out of the elevator and let the sound settle around her. It reminded her that hospitals were never only places of fear. They were also places where stubborn men argued about glasses, where daughters prayed over paper cups of coffee, where nurses carried blankets like small offerings, where life kept making jokes even when death was in the building looking for a chair. Jonathan followed her out. You sure you don't want to take a break? Maya gave him a sideways look. You ever take a break in the middle of a standoff? That's different. Because you carry a bigger radio? He almost smiled. Because people shoot at me. People bleed on me. Fair. They walked toward the nurses' station together. The department noticed them, then tried not to. Maya could feel the new caution in the room. It was not respect exactly, though some of it might become that with time. For now, it was awareness. People were measuring their words before speaking to her. They were seeing her father and then seeing her, which was not the order she wanted, but it was the order the morning had given them. Grace looked up. Boardroom done? For now. You still employed? Maya set the chart she had carried onto the counter. Apparently. Good. I didn't want to cover your rooms all afternoon. Maya smiled. That's the affection I was hoping for. Before Grace could answer, Paul Everett stepped out of the elevator with a phone pressed to his ear. His face had the drained look of a man who had spent the last hour learning that reputation, like blood pressure, could drop fast and without permission. Yes, Mr. Whitmore, Everett said into the phone. I understand. Yes, she is here. No, sir. I would not characterize it that way. Of course. I'll bring her if she agrees. Maya looked at him. Everett ended the call and approached with visible reluctance. Nurse William, Mr. Whitmore is asking to speak with you. Jonathan's expression hardened. About what? Everett hesitated. He did not say exactly. Maya glanced toward the ER board. Is he medically stable? Infectious disease says he's stable. Fever down slightly. They're still waiting on test results. Then he can wait. Everett looked startled. He's the lead investor. Maya stared at him. He seemed to hear himself and closed his eyes briefly. That came out wrong. No, Maya said. It came out honest. Grace turned away, pretending to rearrange paperwork. Everett lowered his voice. He specifically requested you. He said it was important. Maya took a breath. She was tired of important men asking for her while patients with no donor plaques waited quietly behind curtains. Still, Whitmore was a patient, and if his request had anything to do with exposure, safety, or what had happened upstairs, it mattered. I'll go after I check my rooms. Everett nodded quickly. Of course. Jonathan stayed beside her as she moved through the ER. Room 9's pain was controlled. Room 12 finally agreed to let his wife buy reading glasses at the pharmacy. The young mother with the toddler had received clear instructions from Kelsey, who looked at Maya as if hoping she had seen her trying. Maya had seen. She said nothing yet, but she saw. When Maya finished, Jonathan was waiting near the elevator. You don't have to follow me everywhere, she said. I'm aware. And yet, the elevator ride to the VIP floor was shorter this time, but Maya felt the weight of it more. Maybe because the adrenaline was wearing off. Maybe because her arm hurt. Maybe because Samuel was alive, which allowed her body to remember how close he had come to not being. Outside the isolation suite, Lindsay Parker gave Maya an update through tired eyes. Mr. Whitmore's oxygen is better. Fever's down to 101. His assistant is in a separate room, complaining loudly but masked. Any test results? Preliminary viral panel pending. Infectious disease thinks it may be severe, influenza, or another respiratory virus, but they're not ruling out anything until labs come back. Maya nodded. Good. Keep precautions. Lindsay lowered her voice. He really wants to talk to you. Then I'll listen. Maya put on PPE properly, with Jonathan watching through the glass. She could feel his impatience, even from the hallway. Her father had never liked barriers. Doors, glass, bureaucracy, silence. He trusted clear lines of sight, and people who told the truth before they were cornered into it. Inside, Martin Whitmore looked smaller than his name. The fever had taken some of the shine from him. His hair was flat against his forehead. His eyes were clearer than before, but tired. A half-finished cup of water sat on the table beside him, along with his phone, which he had apparently been using too much. Nurse William, he said. Mr. Whitmore, I hear your other patient survived. Mr. Harris is stable after intervention. Whitmore closed his eyes briefly. Good. Maya checked his IV site and oxygen tubing. You asked to see me? He nodded. Yes. I owe you an apology. She paused, not because she was moved, but because unexpected decency always required careful handling in places where power usually spoke first. For what? She asked. Whitmore looked at her. For assuming my discomfort was an emergency greater than another man's life. Maya said nothing. He continued, voice rough from coughing. I've spent years giving money to this hospital. Wings, equipment, programs, scholarships. I thought that meant I understood care. He swallowed. But when I got sick, I expected the building to bend toward me. I did not ask who it bent away from. Maya looked at him through the shield. Most people don't. That is not much comfort. It wasn't meant to be. A faint smile passed across his face and disappeared. You really don't soften things, not the things that need to stay sharp. He took that in. The man downstairs, Mr. Harris. Does he know what happened? He knows enough. And his family, his daughter knows enough too. Whitmore looked toward the window, though the blinds were half closed. I came in through the private entrance. Yes, I insisted on it. I assumed. I didn't want reporters. Didn't want people staring. Didn't want to sit in a waiting room coughing like everyone else. Maya waited. He turned back to her. I may have put people at risk. You did. The words were quiet, but they did not compromise. Whitmore flinched slightly. Not from anger, from accuracy. What happens now? He asked. Contact tracing. testing, proper isolation, cooperation from you and your assistant. No exceptions. He nodded slowly. You'll have it. Good. He reached toward the bedside table and picked up a folded paper. His hand shook just enough that Maya noticed. I called Paul Everett before you came up. I told him the Whitmore Foundation is freezing the next donation until this hospital completes an independent review of emergency staffing, donor access, and patient prioritization. Maya stared at him. That is not why I treated you, she said. I know. I don't want Samuel Harris turned into a public relations story. Neither do I. Do you? Whitmore met her eyes. Fever had stripped away some of the performance, and what remained looked almost ashamed. I am trying to learn the difference between doing good and being seen doing good. That was the first thing he had said that sounded expensive in the right way. Maya adjusted the blanket near his knees. Then start by not making yourself the hero of someone else's harm. He gave a dry laugh that turned into a cough. Maya waited until it passed, then checked his oxygen again. When he could speak, he said, "What would you ask for? I'm not on the board. No. You're closer to the truth than they are." Maya thought of the emergency room downstairs, of nurses too afraid to refuse, of patients waiting because they were poor, old, black, uninsured, difficult, lonely, or simply not connected to anyone with a name on the wall. Safe staffing, she said. Real infection protocols. No private entrances for potentially contagious patients. A clear rule that a donor never outranks a critical patient, and protection for any nurse who says an order is unsafe. Whitmore nodded, each item landing. Put it in writing. You're the second person to tell me that today. Then maybe you should. Maya looked at him for a long moment. Words on paper don't change a culture by themselves. No, Whitmore said. But they give people something to hold leadership against when memory gets convenient. That, she had to admit, was true. A knock came at the glass. Lindsay held up a tablet. Results were starting to come in. Maya stepped to the window, read the message, and felt a small measure of relief. Preliminary panel suggests influenza A, she told him. Still serious, especially with your symptoms, but better than some possibilities. Infectious disease will confirm. Whitmore closed his eyes. Thank God. Yes, Maya said. And thank the people following precautions you should have followed earlier. He opened one eye. That was almost gentle. Don't get used to it. This time his laugh did not become a cough. When Maya exited the suite and completed doffing, Jonathan was waiting with arms folded. Well? He asked. He apologized. Jonathan looked skeptical. Did it hurt him? A little. Good. He's freezing his donation until an independent review. That made Jonathan's eyebrows lift. Well, don't look too impressed. He helped create the problem. Sometimes the people who helped create a problem pay to dismantle it because shame finally gets expensive. Maya removed the last glove and tossed it away. That sounds like something Granddad would say. No. Your granddad would have brought up Pharaoh. She smiled despite herself. As they walked toward the elevator, Everett hurried after them, phone in hand and panic fully visible now. Nurse William, Commander. The board is calling an emergency session. Mr. Whitmore's decision changes things. Maya turned. No. Samuel Harris changed things. Mr. Whitmore just made it harder for you to ignore. Everett stopped, as if struck. Jonathan looked at his daughter, and his voice softened. You ready to go back down? Maya pressed the elevator button. I never stopped being ready, but when the doors opened, Grace was inside, breathless, her face pale. Maya, she said. It's Mr. Harris. The floor seemed to drop beneath the moment. Maya stepped forward. What happened? Grace swallowed. He's asking for you. Cardiac recovery says he's stable, but he won't settle. Tanya's scared. He keeps saying he needs to tell the nurse something before he sleeps. Maya's chest tightened. Jonathan moved aside immediately. The elevator doors began to close, and Maya reached out to stop them. Then take me to him, she said. And, as the doors shut behind them, the hospital's politics, donors, apologies, and investigations fell away again, leaving only the thing that had mattered from the beginning. A patient, a promise, and a nurse who had not forgotten either. The elevator dropped toward cardiac recovery, with Grace standing on one side of Maya and Jonathan on the other, and for once nobody tried to fill the silence. Maya watched the numbers descend. 4th floor, 3rd, 2nd. Her mind had already left the elevator and gone ahead of her to Samuel Harris. Stable, Grace had said. Stable, but unsettled. Asking for her, needing to tell her something before he slept. In hospitals, people often ask to speak before sleep. Sometimes it was fear, sometimes gratitude, sometimes unfinished business rose to the surface when the body grew weak and the room got quiet. Maya had learned never to dismiss it. A patient asking to speak was still a patient asking to be cared for. When the doors opened, Tanya was waiting near the cardiac recovery entrance with both hands clasped under her chin. Her postal jacket was gone now, folded over the back of a chair, and she looked smaller without it, less like a woman who delivered mail through rain and heat, more like a daughter trying not to become a child again. Maya, Tanya said, relief breaking through her voice. He keeps asking if you're still in the building. I'm here. They said he needs rest, but he won't close his eyes. He says he promised Evelyn he wouldn't leave things unsaid. Tanya tried to smile, but it trembled. That's my mama. He always brings her into everything. Maya softened. Good marriages have a way of staying in the room. Tanya nodded, wiping under one eye. He said to tell you he's sorry. For what? For causing trouble. Maya's expression changed. Not anger exactly. Something sadder. He didn't cause trouble. He revealed it. Jonathan, standing a few steps behind, heard that and looked down the hallway as if committing the sentence to memory. A recovery nurse checked Maya's badge and let them through. Jonathan stayed outside after Maya gave him a look. He held up both hands. I'm not coming in unless asked. Thank you. I can be trained. Let's not get ambitious. For the first time in hours, Tanya laughed softly. Samuel Harris lay in a recovery bay behind a pale blue curtain connected to monitors that now sounded steadier than they had in room 7. His face was tired, deeply tired, but no longer gray. A blanket covered him up to the chest. His wedding ring still shone on his left hand, resting over the sheet like a small gold promise that had survived another test. When Maya stepped in, his eyes opened. There she is, he said, his voice weak but warm. Maya moved beside him. Mr. Harris, you're supposed to be resting. I know, but old men get stubborn privileges. So I've heard. He looked toward Tanya. Baby girl, give us 1 minute. Tanya hesitated. Maya said gently, I'll call you right back in. Tanya kissed her father's forehead. 1 minute, Daddy. Don't turn it into a sermon. Samuel gave her the faintest smile. No promises. When Tanya stepped out, Maya pulled a chair close and sat beside him. She did not stand over patients when they were trying to say something that mattered. Standing made people feel examined. Sitting made them feel accompanied. Samuel watched her for a moment. You saved my life. Dr. Park opened the blockage. Grace stayed with you. A lot of people helped, but you saw me first. Maya did not argue. Yes, sir. He closed his eyes. When Evelyn was dying, I didn't know how to speak up. Doctors came in and out. Nurses too. Good people maybe. Busy people. They used words I didn't understand. And I kept nodding because I didn't want to look foolish. His voice thinned, and Maya leaned closer so he would not have to work so hard. By the time I asked the right questions, there wasn't much time left. Maya listened without interrupting. Samuel opened his eyes again. After she passed, I told myself if I ever got back into a hospital, I'd make noise. But then today came, and I was scared, and that man started yelling, and I felt small all over again. You were not small. I felt it. I know. His fingers moved over the blanket, searching. Maya placed her gloved hand near his, and he held it. You didn't let me disappear, he said. Maya's throat tightened. No, sir. I watched him grab you. Samuel's eyes filled. I couldn't stop him. That was not your job. Felt like it should have been. You were fighting for your life. So were you. The words reached her more deeply than she expected. She looked down at their hands, at the ring touching the edge of her glove. Samuel breathed carefully. I need you to tell me something true. I'll try. Would they have listened if your daddy hadn't come? Maya was quiet. There were lies that sounded kind, and truths that sounded cruel. Maya had never liked either. She preferred honest words spoken gently, even when they hurt. No, she said. Not soon enough. Samuel nodded as if he had already known. That's what I thought. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry for knowing the world. Just don't let it make you hard. Maya looked at him. He gave a small smile. That was Evelyn's line. She used it on me when I got mad at the post office for changing routes. She sounds wise. She was bossy. Same thing when you love somebody. Maya laughed under her breath. Samuel's face grew serious again. You're young, but you carry yourself like somebody raised you with old rules. My parents did. Your father looks like he could command thunder. He thinks so too. Samuel chuckled, then winced slightly. Maya checked the monitor by instinct. I'm fine, he said. You don't get to decide that alone. See? Bossy. Professional. Same thing when you love the work. That one stayed with her. He turned his hand slightly, and the ring caught the light again. I want Tanya to know I wasn't alone. She knows. I want her to hear it from you. I'll tell her. And I want you to know something. He paused to gather breath. That doctor tried to make me feel like I was less important than money, but you made me feel like I was somebody's whole world. Maya felt her eyes sting. She blinked once, slowly. To Tanya, she said. You are. And to Evelyn. Yes, sir. He nodded, satisfied. Then I can sleep. Maya stood and adjusted his blanket, smoothing the edge near his shoulder. You rest. I'll send Tanya in. As she turned to go, Samuel spoke again. Nurse William. She looked back. You are not just your father's daughter. The sentence stopped her. Samuel's voice was quiet, but clear. I'm glad he came. Lord knows I am. But before he got there, you were already standing. Don't let anybody tell this story like he made you brave. Maya could not speak for a moment. Finally, she said, Thank you, Mr. Harris. He closed his eyes. Go on now. Tell my baby girl I'm too stubborn to die. Maya stepped out from behind the curtain and found Tanya waiting with both arms wrapped around herself. He's ready for you, Maya said, and he wants you to know he's too stubborn to die. Tanya let out a sob that turned into a laugh. That sounds like him. Maya touched her arm gently. He also wanted you to know he was not alone. Tanya looked at her. Because of you. Because he spoke up. Because Grace stayed. Because Dr. Park moved fast. Because love has a way of making people fight harder. Tanya studied her face. You always share credit like that? When it's true. And when it's yours? Maya did not answer. Tanya understood. She stepped forward and hugged Maya again, softer this time. Then I'll say it for you. Thank you. Maya let herself receive it, only for a second. Then she stepped back, because receiving gratitude too long made her feel exposed. Jonathan was waiting near the hallway window, looking out over the parking lot. The black SUVs sat below near the entrance, too official for the family cars and rideshares around them. When Maya approached, he turned. He okay? Jonathan asked. He's stable. He's going to sleep now. And you? Maya leaned against the wall beside him. I don't know yet. It was the most honest answer she had given him all day. Jonathan nodded. That's allowed. For a while, they stood together without speaking. Beyond the glass, Atlanta moved in the afternoon light. Traffic crawled past the hospital. A MARTA bus sighed at the curb. An older couple walked slowly toward the entrance, the man holding the woman's elbow with practiced care. Life kept arriving at the doors, trusting that someone inside would remember why the building existed. Maya looked at her father. Did you come here today because of Mom? Jonathan's mouth twitched. Your mother sent me to bring you lunch. Maya stared at him. Lunch? She said you were working a long shift and probably forgot to eat. She made turkey sandwiches, apple slices, and that pound cake you pretend not to like. Despite everything, Maya laughed. So the SWAT commander came to a hospital with pound cake? I was going to leave it at the desk like a normal father. You have never been a normal father. No, he admitted. But I was trying. His smile faded. Then I saw Collins dragging you. Maya looked back out the window. Maybe Mom was right to send you. She usually is. A comfortable silence passed between them, the kind that belonged to family and years and all the things love said by showing up. Then Jonathan reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and pulled out a small brown paper lunch bag, slightly crushed from the chaos of the morning. Maya looked at it and felt something in her chest loosen. "You kept it?" Your mother would have asked. Maya took the bag carefully. Her name was written on the front in her mother's handwriting, with a small heart beside it. For a moment, the hospital, the insults, the boardroom, the infection scare, all of it softened around the simple weight of a packed lunch from home. Jonathan looked down at her badge. Samuel was right, wasn't he? Maya glanced at him. "You were listening? I'm a commander. Listening outside curtains is practically training." "Dad," he smiled faintly. "He said you were already standing before I came." Maya looked at the bag in her hands. "I didn't feel like I was standing." "You were." Her throat tightened again, but this time she let the feeling stay. Before she could answer, Grace appeared at the end of the hall. She was trying to look calm and failing. "Maya," she called. Maya straightened immediately. "What is it?" Grace looked from her to Jonathan, then back. "Administration needs you downstairs. Now. Dr. Collins is saying he's filing a formal complaint against you." Jonathan's expression went still. Maya closed her eyes for one brief second, then opened them again. "What kind of complaint?" Grace swallowed. "Insubordination, creating a hostile work environment, and falsifying urgency to avoid an assignment." Jonathan's voice became dangerously quiet. "He said what?" Maya handed the lunch bag back to her father. "No," Jonathan said. "Eat first." Maya looked toward the elevator. Downstairs, a man who had grabbed her in front of a patient was trying to turn the truth upside down before it hardened into record. It was an old move, a familiar move, the kind of move that counted on exhaustion, fear, and silence to finish the work cruelty had started. Maya took the lunch bag back, opened it, and pulled out one half of the turkey sandwich. She took a bite. Grace blinked. "Maya?" Maya chewed, swallowed, and looked at her father. "Mom said eat," she said. Jonathan's face softened with pride so sharp it almost looked like pain. Then Maya wrapped the sandwich, tucked the bag under her arm, and walked toward the elevator. This time, she was not walking back to defend only herself. She was walking back for every nurse who had ever been punished for telling the truth, every patient who had ever been made to feel inconvenient, and every quiet person who had learned that justice does not become fair on its own. Sometimes, someone has to carry it into the room. The elevator doors opened on the emergency floor, and Maya stepped out with half a turkey sandwich in one hand and the calm expression of a woman who had learned the value of arriving fed to a fight. Grace walked beside her, anxious and talking too fast. "Denise is in the conference room. Everett too." Dr. Park came back down when she heard, "Your dad's officers are near the lobby, but they're staying out of the way. Collins is already inside." "Of course he is," Maya said. Jonathan followed behind them, his face quiet in the way that made younger officers stand straighter and older ones stop joking. He had said very little since Grace told them about the complaint. That worried Maya more than if he had shouted. Her father's anger was most dangerous when it put on a coat and spoke politely. At the nurse's station, Kelsey looked up from a chart. "Maya," I heard. "So did everybody else, I'm guessing." Kelsey's face colored. "Pretty much." Maya nodded once. "Then everybody can watch how truth handles paperwork." Grace gave her a look. "You sure you're okay?" "No." Grace blinked. Maya took another bite of sandwich. "But I'm ready." The small conference room off the emergency department had changed since the last time Maya entered it. Before, it had been tense. Now it felt staged. A laptop sat open on the table. Denise Caldwell had a folder in front of her. Paul Everett stood near the wall with his tie loosened and his face drawn. Dr. Park sat beside the window, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Dr. Collins sat at the far end of the table, clean, composed, and offended, as if everyone had gathered to discuss an inconvenience done to him. He looked at the sandwich in Maya's hand. "Glad to see you're taking this seriously." Maya sat down across from him. "My mother told me to eat." Jonathan remained standing behind her chair. "Her mother outranks everyone in this room." Dr. Park coughed once, possibly to hide a laugh. Denise opened the folder. Nurse William. Dr. Collins has submitted a formal complaint alleging insubordination, disruption of patient services, hostile conduct, and inaccurate escalation of Mr. Harris's condition to avoid reassignment. Maya placed the sandwich back in the brown paper bag and folded the top neatly. That's quite a list. Collins leaned forward. It is an accurate list. Maya looked at him. No, it's a defensive one. Everett rubbed a hand over his face. Let's keep this procedural. Jonathan's eyes moved to him. Procedural is fine. Sanitized is not. Denise nodded slightly, then turned to Collins. Doctor, please summarize your complaint. Collins sat straighter. Nurse William refused a direct staffing assignment during a serious hospital need. She challenged my authority in front of patients and staff. She exaggerated Mr. Harris's instability, encouraged unnecessary escalation, and created confusion in the department. When I attempted to redirect her, she resisted. Maya watched him speak. His voice was smooth now. No shouting, no insults, no hand clamped around her arm. He had become fluent in the language of institutions, where harm could be softened into conflict and cruelty could be dressed as management. Denise made a note. You also allege hostile conduct? Yes, Collins said. Her tone was confrontational, and once Commander William arrived, she used his presence to intimidate staff and undermine my leadership. Jonathan gave a short, humorless breath. Maya lifted one hand slightly without looking back. He stayed quiet. Dr. Park leaned forward. Richard, Mr. Harris had a significant cardiac blockage. He required urgent intervention. That was determined later, Collins said. It was indicated earlier. Not definitively. Maya finally spoke. Medicine rarely gives definitive answers before it punishes delay. The room went quiet. Denise looked at her. Nurse William, you'll have a chance to respond fully. I'd like the chart opened. Denise paused. The chart? Yes. Mr. Harris's timeline. Vitals. EKGs. Notes. Calls to cardiology. Medication times. Rapid response time. Everything. Everett looked uncomfortable. That may not be necessary for this preliminary. It is necessary, Maya said. He is accusing me of falsifying urgency. The patient's record will answer him better than I can. Dr. Park nodded. Open it. Denise turned the laptop toward herself and logged in. It took a minute, during which Collins grew stiller and stiller. Maya knew that stillness. It was the moment a story built from ego began to approach a wall made of facts. Denise read silently at first. Her eyes moved line by line. Dr. Park stood and came around to look over her shoulder. Maya waited. Jonathan waited. Collins did not look at the screen. Finally, Denise said, Initial blood pressure at 912. Repeat at 927 shows drop. Pain assessment updated. Left arm heaviness documented. Nurse note, at 931. States patient. Anxious. Increased chest pressure. Physician notified. Maya looked at Collins. That was you. Denise continued. At 936, additional drop. EKG ordered but delayed. Dr. Park looked up. Why? Delayed. Collins's mouth tightened. The department was busy, Maya said. The machine was available. Grace, standing near the door, spoke softly. It was. I saw it near room 5. Denise made another note. She continued reading. At 9:42, Nurse William documents concern for deterioration and requests cardiology follow-up. At 9:47, Dr. Collins assigns Nurse William to VIP isolation suite. At 9:49, patient reports worsening pressure. Dr. Park's voice went cold. That is not exaggerated urgency. Collins said nothing. Denise looked at Maya. Your note at 9:51 says patient should not be left unattended. Yes. At 9:53, rapid response recommended. Yes. Denise looked up. There is no physician order for rapid response at that time. Maya held Collins's gaze. No. Everett shifted. Richard? Collins's voice was stiff. I judged it premature. Dr. Park's response was immediate. You judged wrong. Collins snapped. Easy to say after cath lab findings. Dr. Park's eyes flashed. No. Easy to say after reading the notes you ignored. The room tightened. Denise clicked again. Security footage is also being reviewed. We have preliminary confirmation of physical contact in the hallway and room entrance area. Collins looked toward Everett. This is turning into a trial. Jonathan spoke for the first time since the complaint summary. You filed charges against her character. Did you expect no evidence? Collins turned on him. With respect, Commander, you are not neutral. No, Jonathan said. I'm not. But the chart is. Maya almost smiled, but she did not. Denise turned to Maya. Would you like to respond to the complaint? Maya looked at the brown lunch bag on the table, at her name in her mother's handwriting, at the little heart drawn beside it. Then she looked at Collins. Yes. She sat straighter, not to look bigger, but to make sure every word had a clear path out of her chest. I refused to leave Samuel Harris because he was unstable. I refused to enter the isolation suite without proper precautions because infectious patients require protocols, not panic. I questioned the assignment because several nurses had already refused it, and it was handed to me while I was actively caring for a cardiac patient. I asked for rapid response because Mr. Harris's symptoms supported it. I gave instructions to Grace because someone needed to protect him after I was removed. None of that was hostile. It was nursing. Collins scoffed. Maya turned her face fully toward him. What was hostile was yelling over a frightened patient. What was hostile was calling me a liability because I would not abandon him. What was hostile was grabbing my arm and pulling me away while his monitor changed, because you wanted to prove that your order mattered more than his life. Collins's face reddened. You are making this personal. It became personal when your hand was on me. The room went still. Maya's voice lowered. But it was moral before that. Dr. Park sat back slowly, her expression unreadable but deeply attentive. Maya continued. You keep saying chain of command. A chain is supposed to hold under pressure. Today, yours broke at the weakest point, because you made fear the first link. Everett looked down. Grace's eyes filled again. Denise stopped writing for a moment, as if she did not want the scratching of the pen to interrupt. Collins leaned back, jaw clenched. Very poetic. But hospitals run on hierarchy. Maya nodded. Hospitals run on trust. Hierarchy is only useful when trust is alive inside it. Jonathan looked at his daughter with a kind of quiet astonishment, as if even he had not known all of that had been sitting in her. Before anyone could respond, Everett's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, then looked at Denise. What? She asked. Everett swallowed. Mr. Whitmore's office sent a written statement. Collins looked alert for the first time. Good. Everett did not look relieved. He confirms that he requested private entrance access despite respiratory symptoms. He confirms he did not disclose all exposure information initially. He also states that no staff member should have been pulled from a critical patient to attend him, and that he supports an independent review of the incident. Collins's face changed. Just slightly, but enough. Denise extended her hand. Send it to me. Everett tapped his phone. A moment later, Denise read the statement, her eyes narrowing as she reached the end. There's more, she said. Mr. Whitmore states that Nurse William provided appropriate care under isolation protocol and that her conduct was, in his words, the first honest thing I encountered in this hospital today. Grace whispered, Well, I'll be. Jonathan's mouth twitched. Collins stood. This is outrageous. A feverish donor and a dramatic nurse are now rewriting the department's operation. Dr. Park stood too. Sit down, Richard. He froze. She had not raised her voice, but something in it made even Jonathan look toward her. Dr. Park stepped closer to the table. You are done calling her dramatic. You are done reducing clinical judgment to attitude. And you are done pretending this is about one nurse who wouldn't bow fast enough. Collins stared at her. Dr. Park looked at Denise. I want it on record that I support immediate suspension pending full review. Not just supervisory duties, clinical duties. His judgment today endangered a patient. Everett looked stricken. Ellen. No, Dr. Park said. Do not Ellen me. We all know how this works. He gets protected because he brings in revenue, intimidates residents, and charms donors at dinner. Nurses absorb the damage. Patients absorb the delay. Then we call it a stressful day and move on. Not this time. The room breathed differently after that. Denise closed the folder. I will recommend immediate administrative suspension pending investigation. Collins looked at Everett. Paul. Everett did not meet his eyes. That was when Collins understood he was alone. He looked at Maya then, and there was anger in his face. But beneath it was something like disbelief. Not remorse. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. Just disbelief that the person he had expected to move had become the person the room revolved around. You have no idea what you've done, he said. Maya stood. Yes, I do. Her voice was calm. I stayed with my patient. No one spoke after that. Collins left the room under his own power, but not with his old authority. The door closed behind him, and the sound was small again. Maya picked up her lunch bag. Grace let out a breath. You okay? Maya looked at her, then at Dr. Park, Denise, Everett, and finally her father. I'm going to finish my sandwich, she said. Then I'm going back to work. Jonathan stepped aside to let her pass, but as she reached the door, he spoke softly enough that only she heard. Your mother is going to want every detail. Maya looked up at him. Then, you better not leave anything out. He smiled. Wouldn't dare. Maya walked back into the emergency department, where the call lights still blinked and the work still waited. But now the hallway felt different. Not healed. Not fixed. Not even safe yet, but awake. And sometimes, before justice can move, a place has to wake up enough to see what it has been stepping over. Maya walked back into the emergency department just as night shift began taking over, and the hospital changed its rhythm around her. Day shift had a certain noise to it, bright and hurried, full of administrators, appointments, visitors, phones, paperwork, and the restless movement of people trying to get everything done before evening. Night shift was different. It lowered the lights, but not the stakes. It carried coffee in bigger cups. It spoke softer, walked faster when it had to, and understood that fear felt larger after sunset. Grace met Maya at the nurse's station, with her coat over one arm. She looked exhausted, but lighter somehow, as if the day had taken something from her and returned something else in its place. You're still here, Grace said. So are you. I'm leaving. That's the difference. Maya smiled faintly. Go home. Grace hesitated. Before I do, I need to say one more thing. Maya gave her a look. You've been saying one more thing all day. I know. I'm becoming unbearable. Grace took a breath. You made a lot of us look at ourselves today. That wasn't comfortable. It wasn't comfortable from my side either. No, Grace said. I imagine not. She glanced toward the hallway where Kelsey was helping the night nurse with room assignments. But I'm glad it happened. Not the way it happened. Not what Collins did, but the waking up part. Maya followed her gaze. Waking up hurts. Grace nodded. So does staying asleep. Eventually, for a moment, they stood together in the small island of light, behind the nurse's station, surrounded by charts, monitors, ringing phones, and the ordinary tools of mercy. Then Grace reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded sticky note. Tanya asked me to give you this, if she missed you. Maya opened it. Written in quick, slanted handwriting were the words, Daddy says Sunday dinner is not optional. Evelyn's peach cobbler recipe will be represented, though possibly not accurately. Maya laughed softly. Grace smiled. That man's going to be trouble. He already is. The good kind. Maya folded the note carefully. The alive kind. I'll take it. Grace touched her shoulder gently, then lowered her hand, as if remembering what Maya had endured that morning. Good night, Nurse William. The title was not careful this time. Not fearful. Respectful. Good night, Grace. When Grace left, Maya went to cardiac recovery one last time before finishing her charting. Samuel was asleep. Tanya sat beside him, head tilted back against the chair, eyes closed but not quite sleeping. The steady monitor glow lit the room in soft green. Samuel's left hand rested over the blanket, the gold wedding ring still catching what little light there was. Maya did not wake them. She stood in the doorway for a few seconds, long enough to let the sound of his heartbeat become real again. Steady, not guaranteed, Not forever, but steady. In a hospital, that counted as grace. As she turned to leave, Tanya opened one eye. "You sneaking out?" she whispered, trying not to wake you. "Too late. Postal families sleep light." Maya smiled. "He looks better." "He is." Tanya looked at her father, then back at Maya. "Dr. Park says he'll need recovery, rehab, better food, less salt, more walking, and absolutely no arguing with medical professionals. Good luck with that last part. Right?" Tanya rubbed her face, tired but smiling. "He wants to name his new pill organizer Evelyn. Says that way he'll actually listen to it." Maya shook her head. "That may be medically effective." Tanya's expression softened. "You'll come Sunday when he's home? If he's ready for visitors." "He said you're not a visitor. You're family adjacent." Maya felt the phrase touch something tender in her. That sounds official. He was a mailman. He respects categories. They both smiled. Then Tanya reached out and took Maya's hand. "I meant what I said. You gave us time." Maya looked at Samuel. "He fought for it. And you fought with him." Maya did not argue this time. She simply nodded. When she returned to the emergency department, Jonathan was waiting near the lobby doors with the brown paper lunch bag in one hand and his phone in the other. He looked like a man who had spent the day in unfamiliar territory and still managed to map every exit. "Mama?" Maya asked. "4 missed calls," he said. "From Mom, 2 from your mother, 2 from women at church, acting on her behalf. That's a coordinated operation. I told you. She outranks everyone." Maya leaned against the wall beside him. For the first time all day, her body felt the weight of the hours. Her feet hurt. Her arm ached. Her head felt full of voices. Collins shouting, Samuel whispering, Tanya thanking her, Whitmore apologizing, her mother warning her not to make herself smaller. Jonathan studied her face. "Ready to go home? My shift isn't over." "Maya, I have 1 hour." He looked as if he wanted to argue. Then he looked through the ER doors, where a night nurse was helping a child hold a cup of water, and he seemed to understand again that his daughter's duty was not something he could carry away for her. 1 hour, he said. 1 hour. I'll wait. You don't have to. I know. She smiled, too tired to fight him. Before she went back in, he held out the lunch bag. Pound cake. Maya took it. "You saved dessert? I feared your mother more than hospital security." "As you should." Jonathan's expression softened. "I'm proud of you." The words were simple. He had said them before, at graduations, after hard exams, after her first nursing job. But tonight, they landed differently. Not because he was Commander William, because he was her father, and she was tired enough to receive what love offered without trying to prove she did not need it. "I know," she said quietly. His eyes glistened, though he would deny it under oath. "No," he said. "I need you to really know. Before I walked in, you were standing your ground. Samuel saw it. Grace saw it. I saw it the moment I opened those doors. You did not become brave because help arrived. Help arrived and found you already brave." Maya looked down at the lunch bag in her hands. For most of her life, she had tried to separate who she was from whose daughter she was. She had wanted her work to speak in her own voice. Today, the world had tried to twist that. First by treating her like nobody, then by treating her like somebody only after her father appeared. But Samuel had been right. Her courage had not started at the door. It had started beside the bed, with her hand on a frightened man's wrist and her feet refusing to move. "I was scared," she said. Jonathan nodded. "Good. Fear means you knew what it could cost. And courage? Courage means the cost didn't get the final vote." Maya looked up. "Samuel said that. He sounds like a smart man." "He is." "Then listen to him." She smiled. A call light blinked near the ER desk. Maya straightened. Jonathan Sehil. "There it is. There it is." She tucked the pound cake into her pocket and returned to the floor. The last hour of her shift was quiet by emergency standards, which meant no one screamed, no one coded, and only one family threatened to sue because the vending machine took their dollar. Maya helped an elderly man find his hearing aids in the sheets. She explained antibiotics to a grandmother who called her baby, and then apologized because she did not want to sound disrespectful. Maya told her she had been called worse, with less love. Kelsey approached near the end of the shift with a chart held against her chest. Maya, yes? I took room 12 through discharge again. Slower. He understood it this time. Good. And I told the night nurse he needs large print instructions. Better. Kelsey nodded, then hesitated. I know one good moment doesn't fix who I was this morning. No, Maya said. It doesn't. Kelsey accepted that. But I want to keep doing better. Then do it. When nobody is watching. Kelsey nodded. I will. Maya hoped so. At 7:30, her shift finally ended. She stood in the staff locker room for a moment, looking at herself in the small mirror above the sink. Her scrubs were wrinkled. Her eyes were tired. The spot on her arm had darkened faintly. Her badge hung slightly crooked. She straightened it. Maya, William, RN. Not Commander William's daughter, though she was that too. Not the new black nurse they had mocked, though she had been that in their eyes. Not a symbol, not a headline, not a lesson polished for a hospital newsletter. A nurse. She changed slowly, washed her hands longer than necessary, and walked out through the corridor toward the lobby. The donor wall was still there. The names still shone. But beneath it, someone had placed a temporary sign printed on plain paper and taped at eye level. Future home of the Evelyn and Samuel Harris Patient Advocacy Program. Maya stopped. The sign was not fancy. The tape was crooked. The font was too small. It looked like something made in a hurry by people who had finally realized waiting for perfection was another way to delay doing right. It was the most beautiful thing on the wall. Jonathan stood near the doors, coat over one arm. Maya nodded toward the sign. Did you see? I did. Samuel's going to complain that Evelyn's name should be first. It is. He'll complain anyway. Probably. They walked toward the exit together. Outside, Atlanta evening had settled warm and blue over the hospital entrance. Cars moved through the parking lot. A bus sighed at the curb. Somewhere nearby, a woman laughed into her phone. And somewhere else, an ambulance approached with lights flashing but siren low. At the door, a small voice called from behind them. Nurse? Maya turned. A little girl wrapped in a blanket sat beside her mother near triage, the same child who had arrived after the lobby gathering. Her cheeks were flushed, but she looked less frightened now. Are you the nurse who helps people? The girl asked. Maya looked at the mother, who smiled tiredly. Then Maya crouched to the child's level. I try to be. The girl considered this. My grandma says trying counts if you don't quit. Maya smiled. Your grandma is right. The child held out a small sticker from the front desk. A gold star slightly bent at one corner. You can have this. Maya took it with the seriousness it deserved. Thank you. She stood and placed the sticker on the back of her badge. Jonathan watched, silent. As they stepped outside, the automatic doors opened behind them again, letting another family in, another worry, another story, another chance for the hospital to prove what it had promised. Maya looked back once. Through the glass, she could see nurses moving, patients waiting, lights glowing. The crooked paper sign beneath the donor wall. Not justice completed, not pain erased, but a beginning. Jonathan opened the passenger door of his SUV. Maya looked at him. I drove here. Your Toyota coughed twice when I walked past it. I'm not letting my daughter drive that thing tonight. It has character. It has a warning light, shaped like surrender. Maya laughed. Really laughed this time. The sound tired but free. She got into the SUV. As they pulled away from Street Catherine Medical Center, Maya held the small gold star against her badge and watched the hospital grow smaller in the side mirror. She thought of Samuel sleeping beneath a steady monitor, Tanya planning Sunday dinner, Grace choosing courage, Kelsey learning humility, Whitmore discovering that generosity without justice was just reputation, and Collins, facing, perhaps for the first time, a room that no longer moved aside for him. Her father drove quietly. After a while, he said, Your mother saved you dinner. What did she make? Pot roast. Maya leaned her head back against the seat and closed her eyes. Then drive faster. Jonathan smiled and turned onto the road home. Behind them, the hospital doors kept opening. Inside, the work continued. And somewhere on the cardiac floor, an old man's heart kept beating, steady and stubborn, like a promise that had almost been broken but wasn't. Maya William did not need applause. She did not need a donor wall, a title, or a powerful last name to make her worthy of respect. That day, when money shouted, pride threatened, and injustice put its hand on her arm, she had stayed with her patient as long as she could. And in the end, that was the truth no one could rewrite. She was not just the commander's daughter. She was not just the new nurse. She was the one who stayed. And sometimes, in a world too quick to look away, the one who stays is the one who changes everything. The lesson of Maya Williams' story is that true dignity does not come from power, money, titles, or family name. It comes from doing what is right when it is difficult, when no one is applauding, and when standing firm may cost you something. Maya teaches us that no patient, no worker, and no human being should ever be treated as less important because of race, status, age, or position. Justice often begins with one quiet person refusing to look away. And sometimes, the greatest heroes are not the loudest people in the room, but the ones who stay, care, and protect others when everyone else chooses silence. Thank you for staying with this story until the very end. If it touched your heart, I would truly love to hear your thoughts on the storytelling, the emotional pacing, or whatever stayed with you after listening. Every comment you share helps make the next stories more honest, moving, and meaningful. And if you have a powerful or meaningful story of your own, please do not hesitate to send it to the channel. It may become the next story to touch and inspire thousands of others. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.